What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Word on Woodward, presented by Rehmann. Empower your purpose with Rehmann. You can catch us right here every Tuesday and Thursday starting at noon. And you guys know it's Thursday, so there will be Hockeytown trivia after today's show. And today's theme is movie theme. So directly after the show ends today, head over to the District Detroit app and tune in to Hockeytown trivia. Make sure you also turn on your live notifications and like and subscribe to the Word on Woodward. That way you won't miss a single second of any of the action. And guys, we've got another jam-packed show for you today. We've got Ken Kale joining us for the mailbag. We've got Tigers Hall of Famer Alan Trammell. Alan Letang is going to join us and talk some NHL prospects. Red Wings Hall of Fame coach Scotty Bowman. And if that's not enough for you guys, we're going to have Spencer Torkelson live at a press conference starting around 1 p.m. today. So make sure you're tuning into that one. But before we get into all of that, let's go to part 2 of our interview with Rico Phillips, the 2019 NHL Willie O'Ree Award winner.
That's amazing. I mean, you are making a splash in the community of not just hockey, but diversity. I mean, it's an amazing thing that you're doing.
Well, thank you. I think now is a really, really important time, of course, with everything that's going on around us. I mean, we kind of had to learn how to tolerate each other in different ways, like at home, everybody at home, which should seem good, but we're not used to our lack of freedoms, and so that causes tension. And then the things that have transpired the last couple of weeks, I mean, there's no denying that, what happened between the police officers and George Floyd was uncalled for, no matter who you are, what level, what you think, all that stuff. But what it's meant in the last week, like for me personally, I was trying to decide what do I say? Where do I go from here? I should use my voice, because I've been able to say a lot of things that are positive for both sides. And when I say both sides, when Black people, white, all people can understand where I'm coming from. I happen to be multicultural. My mom is German and my father was mixed, but his parents, who were Black and white couple from Mobile, Alabama in the early 1900s. And don't ask me how they survived to make children. But yeah, they ended up moving up to Cleveland, and that's how they got away from that segregated South. But so I understand struggle. I understand it's real, and I don't shirk any side of who I am, But by the same token, I'm trying to use my ability to see all sides of things to be, kind of give a positive spin and kind of stopping people from saying stuff that they may not really mean. It's judging, so their character isn't hanging out. But for me, I was trying to think, should I go to a Black Lives Matter meeting and say, hey, listen, here's some things that need to be said from both sides? Or, well, am I the right voice for that? Something I'm passionate about is ice hockey. And I think my voice and diversity inclusion in ice hockey is an excellent place to start. If you look at ice hockey in general, it's that reflection that we're hoping for in life. So if we can diversify, not just diversify ice hockey, but make it so it's inclusive, that's the most important part. It's looking more diverse, but the inclusion part has to continue to happen. If we can do that, it's a model for society, in my opinion. So I'm just going to stick to course. Now I'm going to tell you another reason why. I called Willie O'Ree the other day, and I said, Willie, how you doing, man? And I knew that I just needed somebody to talk to, that I knew had that rational sense. And even though he's elderly or whatever, I knew he had that rational sense. And he said, Rico, your voice is where your voice is, so use it where you have it. And that's all he had to say. And so my personal goal is to continue to use my voice through ice hockey to speak of diversity and inclusion. And I think people have to understand what that inclusion piece means, to be honest with you. As long as a person of color has to worry about being called a racial slur when they play the sport of ice hockey, they don't feel included. And that's just the bottom line right there. And that's the simplest of terms. That's the most simplistic way, all right? I'm talking about the kid playing. But when we talk about other levels of it, whether it be making sure you have the right people on, when kids of color are participating in sport, invite the parents to be part of the team, scorekeep, be part of the association, be bigger than just hockey mom or dad has to sit over there by themselves. I had some very interesting conversations with some hockey moms See, what we do with our program, to kind of skip back just a bit, is we take the kids that are excelling and they have the right structure, and we offer them opportunities to continue to play in the sport. So it isn't just learn to play for those kids. They get to continue on if they have what it takes. And then we get funding for them. So they still don't even have to pay the first year or two. But once they get involved in the sport, that's when the reality of our sport hits. They're not in our nurturing little world anymore, you know. And so I've even had to learn that I have to better prepare parents and people that are even on a different socioeconomic level of what to be. See, I used to not want to tell them anything because I didn't want them coming in with their dupes up. What do you say about black? He said black jersey.
Right.
Oh, okay, you better say black jersey. You know, I don't want people feeling like that, like they have to be concerned. But by the same token, I found out that I underprepared some folks. And so when it happened, they found themselves in an awkward spot, like not prepared, thinking everybody in hockey loves everybody. And it wasn't that way for them. It's happened even recently. And so what I've had to turn my attention to is not who's saying these things, why are they saying them, but more to the victim of these circumstances. How do you respond? How do you react to them? As a referee, many times I don't hear it, but I see a reaction. And in their case, a reaction looks like they're just being what they're made out to be called. And they don't understand that they have to be above that. And so it's a lot of teaching and learning on all levels about what inclusion means. And I've even learned a lot in the last year. I'm not going to lie to you, I've learned a whole lot. But I am inspired that things are happening in the sport of ice hockey. It may not be known all throughout the world yet, or our country, or our nation, or however you want to say it, but I see it happening. But it's just, you know, we still have some ways to go.
Absolutely. We have a long way to go, and I'm happy that we're starting at least. But for you personally, let's talk about your 34-year career as a ref. You told me prior to this interview that during the first 15, 20 years of your career, you were the only person of color in most ranks. So what, if any, challenges did you face during that time?
Let's go all the way back to 1986. I was 2 months into my tenure as a new referee. I couldn't even stop. It was not good. I probably should not have even tried. Don't ask me why I kept doing it, but I had enough mentors around me to say, keep trying, Rico. You did fine today, even though I knew I skated like terrible, right? And the kids would even sometimes laugh at me. So I had this, you know, crutch I was dealing with, this problem that I was dealing with, not being a good skater and trying to maintain how I'm supposed to even do this yet, having not even been a good player yet. And so I'm only doing little kids though, you know, the littlest of kids, and I'm learning the craft. 2 months in, I blew a call apparently, and a coach called me over, and without hesitation, he called me the N-word and then told me he's going to take me out in the parking lot. Here I was, 17 years old, and I was beside myself. I didn't know what to do at the time, and I just was stunned and looked at him. I wasn't sure whether to be scared or mad. You know what I mean? It was a real bad spot. I felt alone. And so after this incident happened, my senior official partner came over, and when he came over, he immediately threw the coach out of the game and took control of the game. And then I was kind of skating around stunned the rest of the time. And then I went in the locker room, and I'll be honest with you, I wanted to give it up. I was ready to take that stuff off and never have. My mom was dropping me off of games. I wasn't even driving to these games. It was a kind of a hassle to even do it. And I was like, I don't even need this, man. My heart was just pounding, thinking I was, getting ready to fight this guy. But anyways, my partner told me, every day you can grow up or you can stay young. And I looked at him and said, what do you mean by that? He says, listen, man, he said, you're going to come across people like this in your life, and you can't just run and hide and tucker. He said, Rico, you had the authority to take care of him yourself and be the man in that situation and make him look like the fool. Instead, I had to come over and save you. He said, that's not the knock on you. I imagine you've never had to deal with anything like this before. He said, but today's the day you decide whether you can deal with stuff like this in life or you can't. And I just sat back and I was like, whoa. And I grew up that day. So that was my first instance, but I've had other instances where I had fellow officials come up to me before the opening face-off and remind me that the puck goes down, not up, like in jump ball. I've been told I need to go back to basketball where I belong. All those things that you hear about have happened to me. Within 2 seasons ago, I was refereeing a charity hockey game a charity hockey game between police and firefighters. Yep, you heard me right. And a firefighter who was not playing the game was upset with a call that I didn't make and called me a boy. And then I wasn't sure what he meant by that. I said, "What did you say?" He said, "You heard me, boy. What are you going to do about it, boy?" And I feel lucky to even be able to say that, because I want people to understand that that is said in a racist tone. Hurt my feelings, man. I was really upset, like, what? And then I'm thinking, this is a firefighter? I mean, I was in a different county than my own county, but I was livid. And for that moment, I said, "Rico, what are you going to do about it?" And I was in uniform, and no matter if I was or wasn't, I stepped away from him, and I got somebody to take him out. It wasn't the fool that I was ready to be, because I was very upset with him, man. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." In this is a couple years ago, whatever, I couldn't believe it still exists. So as far as we've come, we still have a long way to go, like you said.
Absolutely, but a good thing to see is the change that a lot of these players in the NHL are making. Like yesterday, the formation of the Hockey Diversity Alliance was announced, with Evander Kane and Akima Liu as co-heads, and the executive committee, including Red Wings' own Trevor Daley. So for you, what is it like seeing men with a platform band together to work tirelessly to eradicate racism and intolerance in the sport of hockey?
Well, I think what's key about this particular group is it's a voice within the voice. So I do believe the National Hockey League has done very well with the diversity and inclusion program, but it's a model. So in other words, it has some intangibles connected to it that go along with their business model. That's not a bad thing, because the sport is inclusive in a lot of ways, but their focus is on fan base as much as any part of the players. So to see the players kind of, and of course Trevor, take an active role and not just sit back and wait for the NHL to do something, because I think they get the sense that they've waited too long for them to have their own voice. I mean, I don't want to take anything from hockey. It's for everyone, and National Hockey League. They've made me into an incredible person this year, so I want to make sure that's clear. And please don't cut that out. But I'm just saying, what's really important is that the players have a sense of responsibility. They're not leaving it to the NHL, and that's what's important about this role. It's their sense of responsibility. They're going to take over for the players, because they're in the locker rooms, not the execs at the NHL, not the people I work. They don't go hang out in the locker rooms with the players and hear the words and on the ice and see what's happening and hear fans and what's going on. Their voice needs to be heard louder in a different manner, I guess. So I'm really excited. Boy, and I feel lucky because I met Trevor and we're like buddies. So I'll give him a call and give him my 3 cents.
So what can others do who aren't professional athletes and who don't have that big platform? What can others do to help support people of color, not just during this time but in the long run as well?
Well, I think one of the most things I posted on social media the other day, my words were, seek to understand as aggressively as you seek to be understood. I think that's where we're all as humans in this society are blocking ourselves. We're trying to get all our word out, what we've got to say, but not listening to what others are saying and not trying to understand their perspective. Personally, I would never condone or understand a perspective of looting and biting and rioting and being violent. That's not the way to get our message across. But by the same token, it is my responsibility to try to understand why someone would. And to be honest with you, I still can't understand. But it is my responsibility as a person to try to understand that. Not condone it, but understand it. I think that's the big picture thinking, beyond hockey. We need to stop just getting our voice heard, but also listening to the voices that are speaking. We're another one quote I used, I think I used it today, is wisdom is better than smart. Be smart about or be wise about your smarts. And what that says to me is, so many people have smart things to say. I'm not saying that they don't, and they're using memes to express themselves, not really thinking about how that affects people, their diversity, their background. Not realizing that you're hurting people by making these remarks? Would you say that to them in person? Would you show them that if they were sitting next to you? And in many instances, no, they wouldn't say it, and no, they wouldn't show it. So why are you broadcasting it so that you had the chance of being misunderstood, misrepresented? And that's probably the biggest thing I see in those social media is causing this divide across our country. It isn't just what we're saying, it's just that we're not listening and not realizing before I say that, let me listen to what I'm saying here and, be thoughtful, not just, this is my point, forget your point. Oh, your point doesn't matter, listen to my point. And that's what's going on so often, and it's causing, people to be misunderstood as being called racist or, I think, real briefly, I believe the word racist is used too much. I think in my era we use prejudice, and I think that's a better term to use because we all have prejudice, but we're not all racist.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Rico, I really can't thank you enough for taking this time to chat with me.
For sure.
It is inspiring to see what you are continuously doing to give back to the community and make hockey for everyone.
And I want to tell you, stay tuned. You'll see more of Rico with the NHL in about a week and a half or so. I'm sure it'll be going across your social media platforms some way or another. So I'm not going very far.
I hope you don't. I can't wait to see you back at Little Caesars Arena, hopefully soon.
Yes, me too. That was so much fun, you guys. That's another one of those, oh my gosh moments, but we can go on and on.
Thank you, Rico. I appreciate it. Hope to talk soon.
Yep, take care.
Thank you, Carly and Rico. Rico is such a great role model and a great person for us to have on and continue these conversations that we need to have moving forward. So thank you guys both for doing that. Rico, great to hear from you as always, guys. We're going to get into today's Big Three presented by Chevy. We've got some really exciting news all across the board. And I, of course, have to bring in Art Regner for this one. Art, great to see you again today.
Well, it's always great to be here, Danielle. I really appreciate it. What a great guy, Rico Phillips. What a insightful interview. And, if you don't think bigotry exists, I mean, somebody in this day and age calling him boy and knowing exactly what that meant is absolutely disgusting. I don't know if I could have been a bigger man than him, who just walked away from the situation, diffused it, and got that guy, rightly so, out of the building. But, boy, really powerful stuff. And I compliment Carly. A great job.
Yeah, Art, it's amazing to see what he's doing, not only for inclusivity in the game of hockey, but just in general. It's like you said, he's been through a lot, and it's great to see the impact that he's making based on his experiences.
Without question.
Let's move on into our first topic of the Big Three today, Art. And I know that you have been waiting to talk about this. The MLB draft, the Tigers had the 1-1 pick last night. And they took him. They took the slugger out of Arizona State, Spencer Torkelson. We've been talking about him for weeks, Art. What do you think of the pick overall? I know you were really high on Torkelson. Lynn Henning was high on Torkelson. He's officially a Tiger. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, I think he's a power hitter. I mean, the Tigers had, I think the most home runs hit by a Tiger last year was 15. In a season, 162 game season, or maybe the Tigers only played 161 last year. I think they had a game canceled for some reason. Anyway, my point being is this. I mean, it's no surprise. When I first heard it and they said third base, Danielle, I'm thinking to myself, whoa, Rob Manfred's not going to like that. Somebody is going to be put on double secret probation. Instead of hitting 1B, they hit 3B. But the Tigers think he can play third, which is a little bit of a surprise. But that just goes to show you, we talked about it with Lynn Henning on the last show, what kind of athleticism he really does have. So this is a player, and you could see Asa Lacy was scheduled to go third. He went fourth. And then Austin Martin, who we were talking about, went down to sixth to the Toronto Blue Jays. So the only surprise, I guess, in the first few picks was that Spencer Torkelson is a Detroit Tiger, and rightly so. I love the pick. I can't wait to see him. I know he's going to be fast-tracked. I think eventually, everything that I've read about him is that he most likely, when it's all said and done at the end of the day, and this doesn't speak on his athleticism, he's probably going to end up at first base for the long term and being the Tiger in the middle of their lineup for a long, long time. My biggest fear is if you're going to start changing positions for him, I don't want it to affect his bat. I mean, he's here to be a hitter. He's here to be a power hitter. He's here to hit home runs and drive in runs. So, if the Tigers make the transition to third, he starts concentrating on this and it affects his batting average, maybe then you switch him around a little bit. But you know what? I'm really picking at, just to try to find something that I'm worried about. But overall, I'm ecstatic. I'm extremely happy. I think Spencer Torkelson is going to be a Tiger for a long, long time, regardless of where he plays. And I think he's going to hit a lot of home runs. It'd be great.
Yeah, like
I think Al Kaline leads the Tigers. I was going to say, I think Kaline has 399 home runs. I think that's the most in Tigers history. If Hank Greenberg didn't go away for the Warriors, he probably would lead them. But who knows? Maybe Spencer, before it's said and done, will be the Tigers' all-time home run hitter, leader in home runs. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, Art, as you mentioned earlier, it's really all about his bat. He's a big hitter, so they'll find the right position for him. I have no doubt in my mind about that one. And I don't know if you heard this on ESPN, but during his interview, he was excited because he said something like, yeah, I just told my dad that he could punch me in the face and I wouldn't even feel it. His adrenaline was high. He was really excited that he was made first overall. So I'm really happy for him. Reaction from his family to have him.
Right. I mean, I guess, certainly that's a great moment when you watch the draft. The best reaction is to see the players. I mean, their families are ecstatic. I can't remember what player it was, but one player who went higher than anticipated, he must have got the call and knew because he was holding the family dog. Then he gave the family dog to his mother. And then when the crowd erupted, I don't know if you caught this or not, it was pretty hilarious. The family dog, like most dogs would do, or animals, if they're startled, started to freak out. And mom was trying to hold the dog down. And in this moment of, euphoria, the dog just jumped away and kind of was like, what the hell's going on? And the young man that was drafted, I wish I could remember his name, was kind of laughing. You know what I mean? It's those kind of moments that you really, really like, true human emotion and raw emotion. The dog became part of it. I mean, I thought the draft was really cool. I mean, I think these virtual drafts, maybe that's what they should do all the time. I think they move a lot quicker, analysis. So I was a big fan of it, and I'm real happy. I mean, I am so happy that Spencer Torkelson is a Tiger because he's a power hitter. That's exactly what they need.
Yeah, Art, the virtual drafts have been going really, really well. And we're excited, as Art said, to have Spencer Torkelson. And later in the show, he's actually going to join us live during his press conference. We'll go straight to that press conference. So let's move on to our second topic of the big three today. The Red Wings signed Albert Johansson. Now, this happened, I believe, last week. And Art, he was taken in the 2019 draft in the second round, a defenseman that played in Sweden this past season. I know you liked him a lot. Hey, the Red Wings organization liked him a lot. What do you think about them giving him the entry-level deal?
Well, obviously, he was very impressive in the Swedish league and I'm probably going to butcher this, but for Fargestad PK. He was drafted 60th overall in the second round. He was the third player the Red Wings took. They put Mo Seider at 6th overall. Then they took Ante Tumisto, I believe, at 32nd overall, 34th, wherever the second round where that pick. And Tumisto was the player of the league. He's also a defenseman. And then Albert Johansson. I think the Red Wings' first three picks were defensemen, which goes to show you where Steve Yzerman is thinking as far as the draft. His father played in the NHL for Calgary. His father, Roger, for Calgary. And the Chicago Blackhawks played 160 games in the NHL. So he has a good pedigree, a good puck-moving defenseman. Obviously the Red Wings, when the Red Wings sign a player like this, I mean, I think he's going to be in the Swedish Hockey League, depending on how this all obviously shakes out. Probably next year, play for the big club and see where he's at. But they want to get him over here and get acclimated to the smaller ice surface. That's the only thing with European players that I guess is a drawback, is how are they going to adapt to the smaller ice surface? Because the game, believe it or not, you think you always hear about the large ice surface, it's wide open, they can go to the corners and all that. Well, the game is a lot quicker on a smaller ice surface, and these guys are coming fast and they hit hard. As a matter of fact, Håkan Andersson, the Red Wings chief European scout, guy has picked gems, his whole Red Wings career here. Håkan Andersson said last year in the draft in Vancouver that Albert Johansson could end up being the best draft pick in the class of 2019 when it's all, when the dust clears. That's quite a statement considering that Mo Seider has been so impressive and what Tumisto did too. So the Red Wings' top 3 draft picks of last year, all defensemen, are all guys. Seider's already signed. Tumisto, I'm sure he's going to be signed pretty darn quickly. And now Albert Johansson. So, as things are looking great for the Tigers with Spencer Torkelson and crew and all the young arms, things don't look too shabby for the Red Wings as well.
And I'll say it one more time, Mark, because I think we say it every single show. The futures look really bright for the Tigers and the Red Wings. So let's actually talk some more NHL with our third topic of the big 3 today. The NHL update here. The league and the Players Association have come to an agreement on a date to start training camp. You can see the official statement right here, and the 24 teams will be resuming, the training camp will open, not resuming play on July 10th. So that was kind of the target date. So it's good to see that they locked that in. Still no formal start date or even the cities where the league will continue play, but it is good that the training camp date is now locked in for these teams that will be in the 2014 playoff.
Well, certainly. You've got to commend the NHL and the NBA and, Major League Baseball. Rob Manfred said last night he's 100% sure, the commissioner of baseball, that they're going to play baseball this year. So everybody is working towards a common goal, and that's to get sports back. However, COVID-19 is going to dictate whether sports comes back or not. And, I think that at this point, full steam ahead. We heard July 10th. I'm really eager to see how that's going to go from, my sources around the league. At this point, a lot of hockey players, and you've heard this with some NBA players as well, they're not so eager maybe to start this all up because there's still a lot of question marks. But I think that the apprehension will, the more guys start getting acclimated and get into their rhythm and start playing and start practicing and seeing their teammates and everything, they're going to be tested constantly. I don't think that will be a big issue. But, it would be great if it happens July 10th. I hope it happens July 10th. But as you know, Daniela, everything seems to change second by second. But a good move. I think the league is moving ahead. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think we need sports back. If it's feasible, from a health standpoint, I can't wait till July 10th.
Me either, Art, but as you said, still a fluid situation. And as we have updates, we will be giving them to you. So that wraps it up for our Big 3 today. A big thank you to Chevy for presenting the Big 3 here on the Word on Woodward. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. Guys, like I said earlier, we've still got a jam-packed show for you. A lot coming up, and we're going to have a live press conference with Spencer Torkelson, the 1-1 pick for the Detroit Tigers last night. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But for now, let's catch up with Carly.
Thanks, Daniela. What's up, everyone? Time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meijer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Tiger alum Alan Trammell. How's it going, Alan?
Well, I'm doing fine, Carly. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much. And I want to dive right into your playing career. You had 20 years on the same team. I mean, what's it like staying in one city for your whole professional playing career?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is pretty cool. When you first get drafted by the organization that drafted you, you have that dream. And once you get into your teens and, I've started thinking, my gosh, it would be pretty cool to sit and look at your back of your baseball card and see one team. And the other part about that is that was very special is I had a partner with me, Lou Whitaker, who, again, it goes, Lou and Tram go together. And we both had this conversation together. Again, when we got into our, 13th, 14th year or so, we started saying, what, wouldn't it be cool again to look at the back of your baseball card? And lo and behold, we both got to do that. And, I know sometimes some players, after a certain point, and it's out of their control, to be honest with you. But we were able to do that. And again, that's a very special thing because in the history of the game, when you talk about some of the greats of the greats, they bounced around a little bit, especially at the end of their careers. And for Lou and I, that didn't happen. And so, again, very cool.
Okay, so you made your MLB debut the year after you were drafted in the 1976 MLB draft.
Correct.
So you made that debut at Fenway Park. And what was that moment like? Were you nervous, excited, both?
Nervous is an understatement. Again, I was 19 years old, but I did have, again, the luxury. I had Lou Whitaker next to me. We got called up the same day from Double-A. We had won the Double-A championship. We were with the Montgomery Rebels, but we were in Jacksonville. So after we won Wednesday night, the team busted back to Montgomery. We were told that we were going to Detroit. So we stayed overnight, and we got on a plane on a Thursday morning and flew to Detroit. And we had a day game in Detroit. Didn't realize we had a day game. Well, we signed our contracts, watched the game. We immediately after the game got on a plane to Boston, and the next day was a doubleheader. And both Lou and I played that second game of the doubleheader. And again, to have a sidekick, I mean, we were going to be nervous, and anybody that plays their first major league game is going to be nervous. But the fact that I had, again, my sidekick, somebody that I knew already, it certainly helped. But we didn't win, but we both did well. We got a couple hits apiece. Lou had 3, to be honest with you. I got 2. And you know what? Again, that was kind of how it all started. But very nervous, to say the least.
All right, you touched on Lou Whitaker a couple times now. So you guys debuted again in the same game.
I have to.
You guys are like peanut butter and jelly. I mean, you guys just go together so well. The first of 19 professional seasons together. I mean, what kind of bond do you form with someone who goes through those big life moments, those trials and tribulations with you like that?
Well, we put in a lot of work together, but with that work, it was something that we enjoyed. And even though, again, we're all different personality-wise, I'm a little bit more outgoing, at least that's the perception. Lou is not that quiet, to be honest with you. But he came across that way. But he understood how to play baseball, and his love was just like mine, is that all we wanted to do was to help our team win and do whatever it took. And both of us, again, were small. We were skinny. We didn't have much weight on us, but we knew how to play the game of baseball. And so our coaches, I think, helped us the process. But we had a little something already. But we were both very, very similar in that we understood the game. We understood how much defense meant, especially at that point in time, early in our careers. That's how we were going to stay in the big leagues, and we got a little better with the bat. But again, I've mentioned it so many times already, but the fact that I had a sidekick, and Lou could look over at me, and I could look over at him, and that was really kind of a sounding board that really did help us throughout our careers.
Well, it definitely worked out. Okay, so let's forward to 1984, winning the World Series. Did you ever think you'd be holding the Commissioner's Trophy?
Well, I was hoping so. I mean, that's what when you get in. I mean, you're first of all when you sign. Let's go back a couple more years there, just to start again. Is that your dream is to make it to the major leagues, and then when you get in and you establish yourself, yeah, you want to win. At going back to a young boy again, you're competitive. You've been successful before. You're going, well, why can't I do this at the major league level? But along the line, you have to learn, and losing is not something that I enjoyed. But we took some lumps. We played in a very, very difficult division. But we had a few years under our belt, and we were starting to mature physically and mentally. And so, going into the 84 year, we had come in second to Baltimore, who won the World Series in 83. So we thought we were a good ball club. And then lo and behold, we got off to this incredible start, 35-5. And, we won 17 games in a row on the road, which is an American League record. And it just gave us all the confidence in the world. So, going back, we were ready. We were mature enough now to handle this. But we started winning ball games at an unbelievable clip that just gave us that confidence. And it was just an unbelievable year. You couldn't have scripted it any better. We went wire to wire from first day of the season to the end when we were at the very last day in October when we won the World Series. We were in first place the whole way, and it was the Detroit Tigers year in 1984.
you now serve as a special assistant to the general manager of the
Correct.
Tigers. So touched on that, how you enjoy that. But how amazing is it that you're working for the team that drafted you over 40 years ago?
Oh my gosh. Well, again, that's kind of a full circle. And that's where I started. This is where I'm going to end. There's no question about it. And again, hopefully the end is not for a number of years, but just to be included, to be a part, Al Avila and the guys there, that they let me be a part. That's all that I'm looking for at this stage of my life. And, being involved in, whatever it be, the winter meetings, the trade deadline, the draft, going out to our minor leagues, which is really predominantly what I do more of. Come into Detroit to the big league club and kind of just be a part of that. As I mentioned, that's kind of a little bit of everything, and I really relish the fact that they include me and I'm a part of just about everything that the Tigers do.
You have two of the greatest honors of a professional athlete under your belt: having your jersey retired by the team you played for and being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mean, those days must have been some of the greatest days of your life. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, those are very, very special, but there's also some things that led up to that, and that was obviously Major League debut with Lou Whitaker, winning the World Series in '84, playing with Lou for 19 years. Having your number obviously is very, very special, and to look at Comerica Park on the wall and see my name and my number up there is something that I guess they're stuck with me for forever. When I'm long gone, my legacy will continue, which is very cool. And then being elected into the Hall of Fame. I mean, again, for a player, it doesn't get any better than that. But those go hand in hand. Having your jersey, your number retired, and going into the Hall of Fame, and they're 1A and 1B for me. And without playing in Detroit, it wouldn't have happened. And I can't thank the fans and the people in the Tiger organization all these years. But I say thank you very much.
Well, we thank you as well for your amazing playing careers. Okay, last question. I want to ask about the current state of the Tigers team. What can fans expect to see from them when the season resumes and returns?
Well, I think we're on the right track, and the rebuilding, the teardown, I should say, the teardown is over. Now it's on the way up. And I mentioned before that, in '03, we lost all those games, and '06 that the Tigers were in the World Series. Now, I'm not projecting, and I'm not saying how many years, but the fact is that we're on the right track. And again, with the draft, and we've been drafting the last couple of years, we've got some new players, some better players, and we're hoping that this year we add a few more. And that's how it's done. And we're committed. The Tiger organization, starting from Chris Ilitch and the ownership, is allowing us and giving us the resources to do that. And I think that we have the people on board that are making the right decisions, that you're going to see the Detroit Tigers making progress in the next year or so. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. But we're looking for big and better things here in the next couple of years.
Love it. Mr. Trammell, thank you so much for joining me on Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meijer. This has been awesome. I've learned a lot. I hope you stay well during this time, and I definitely hope to see you very soon at Comerica Park.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, Carly. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, and thanks for tuning in to Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meijer. Back to you.
Thank you, Carly. How great to hear from Alan Trammell. I think Carly may have said it best. Tram and Lou like peanut butter and jelly. Carly, I loved that comparison. And I know Ken Kale is a big fan of both of those guys. So let's bring him in for our mailbag, delivered to you today by Little Caesars. Ken, what did you think of that? How great was it to hear from Tram?
One of my all-time favorite Tigers, especially in 1984. He was the most valuable player, and he was just an awesome shortstop for the Tigers, and a guy that you just marveled at some of the plays that he made. And he always talked about Lou Whitaker, too, and what a great combination. They always talk about the old days of Tinkers to Evans to Chance, but how about Whitaker and Trammell? They were together for such a long time. And I've always said, in order to win a world championship, you got to be strong up the middle, and certainly the Tigers were. They had Trammell and Whitaker. They had Chet Lemon out in center field, who was a good, solid center fielder and hitter as well. And behind the plate, they had Lance Parrish. So just a marvelous year at '84, and a great guy, too, Alan Trammell. I had a chance to talk to him several times since he's been here in Detroit. So really good guy, and good to have him on the show.
A Tiger through and through, right, Art?
Without question. I really think listening to that interview, if he could somehow negotiate a deal with the Baseball Hall of Fame that every 6 months he's in the Hall of Fame, and then the next 6 months Lou Whitaker's in the Hall of Fame, I think he would do that because you could tell, and I think both of them feel this way actually. Without the other one, they wouldn't have been Hall of Famers. They wouldn't have had the career that they had. And obviously, as Ken said, we were growing up. It was always Tinker to Evers to Chance. I hardly even knew what that meant, though. And then after a while, I figured it out. But Whitaker and Trammell, it doesn't get better. It just does not get better. And it's always great to show you how humble Alan Trammell is. How many times did he mention Lou Whitaker in that interview with Carly? Several times, and that just goes to show you the impact that they've had on each other's lives, the impact that they've had on the city of Detroit, and especially the impact they had on the Tiger organization. Doesn't get much better than Lou Whitaker and, of course, Alan Trammell.
It really doesn't, Art. And we've got some great questions today from our fans for both you and Ken. So let's get into this one. The first question is for Ken. Bobby from Garden City asked, after the last offseason, do you see any teams making an offer sheet for Mantha or Bertuzzi?
Well, I can say realistically, no. I don't think that you'll have any other teams making an offer for both of those players. And that's not demeaning in any way. It's just that in today's age of free agency and also in the salary cap world, general managers, for the most part, stay away from the offer sheet. And let me just explain what an offer sheet is to people that are watching right now that don't know. Any team can make a player for a restricted free agent. And if they make them an offer with an offer sheet, the Red Wings have 7 days to match that offer. If the Red Wings match the offer, obviously the player stays with the Red Wings. If they don't match the offer, then that player goes to the new team, but the Red Wings receive compensation in return. And I believe the compensation is based on how much the player actually signs for. So, you know what? I hope that it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Red Wings. There's a handful of players that need to be signed. And those two right there, Bertuzzi and Mantha, are two of the players. But I don't really see maybe but you don't see too many general managers making bids on offer sheets anymore. They did on Sergei Fedorov back in the day, and it can come back to hurt you. And I think that's one of the reasons why GMs don't do it these days.
Right, certainly they're really interesting structured. I mean, Sergei's deal was front loaded. At the time, the Carolina Hurricanes were not going to make their conference final. I don't even know if they made the playoffs back then. But it turned out where when Sergei signed that deal, I remember, what was it, like he got $25 million pretty much up front. And that's why I think Carolina figured out there's just no way Detroit is going to pony up all that money. Obviously, they did. And, the rest is history, as they say. I have heard rumblings out of Montreal that maybe they would sign Mantha to an offer sheet. That was something that was, bandied about the last, about a month or so ago. But we know in Montreal, they make kind of, the Canadian hockey press makes up stuff as they go along. And I don't know if there's any validity to it. And I just don't see Mark Bergevin, the former Red Wing, former teammate of Steve Yzerman's, wanting to get on Steve's bad side. So I just don't think it's going to happen. I think, and besides, Steve has already gone on record saying that we're going to sign Mantha and Bertuzzi. I think both of them will get long-term deals, and I think Robbie Fabre's in for a little bit of a deal too. But I would be stunned. I would be shocked. In a hard salary cap era, if you're going to start playing around with your salary cap and trying to sign a guy, which you're going to have to sign, if you're going to sign somebody to an offer, you're going to have to sign them to an offer that, it's probably more maybe than he's worth, or you're going to have to structure it so that could have an impact on your hard salary cap. So I just think the way the league is today, I agree with Ken. I just don't see it happening.
Well, and that's a good point. If I could just interject right here real quick, that if you're going to make an offer on a player, especially to a team that is hard up against the cap, And let me just give you an example. Let's just suppose that the Maple Leafs are up against the cap, and then another team comes out there and offers a ton of money, a boatload of money to a player. Obviously, Toronto has 7 days to match, but they're going to have to make some moves if they want to sign that player and keep that player under the cap. So it can present some problems. And I just think that general managers, especially as Art mentioned in today's game, where you just don't want to get involved in that type of game. It's just, it can hurt you, it can bite you in the rear end down the road, and that's something that you don't want to happen.
Right. And Ken, Art kind of touched on this. Steve Yzerman has already said that he is going to get deals done with Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi. So let's just say, even if there was an offer sheet for either of them, it would have to be a pretty big number for the Red Wings not to respond and sign those two players, right?
Well, that's a good point, Daniela. And let's just suppose there's a team out there that offers one of those two players a boatload of money, and the Red Wings then have to say, well, is that player – they know the structure of where they want to pay Mantha and Bertuzzi. And if it's way overboard, then there's some second guessing, I would imagine, that would have to take place. But, I just don't see that happening. I really don't. I think Mantha and Bertuzzi will remain Red Wings.
Well,
I agree with you there, Ken.
I think that, well, the Red Wings would get compensation, right? They could get a draft pick or something if you sign a guy, an unrestricted free agent. So the Red Wings could end up with Montreal's first pick. I'm just using Montreal as an example, but I think it's way too risky in today's NHL environment to do that. I really do. Although I'd love to see it. It'd be interesting. And Ken's right. The Leafs would be the team that I think people would go after their players because they're really up against the cap. Red Wings have a lot of cap space. I just don't see it happening.
All right, guys. So great insight on that one. That was a good conversation. But let's move on to our second question. Now, this one is Gil from Dearborn, and he asks, the Tigers have had some luck drafting in the 5th round with Jack Morris, Lou Whitaker, and Buck Farmer. What superstition should we be doing on Thursday to get another winner? And Art, this one's for you.
Okay. Well, it's really interesting, Daniela. As you know, and Carly, I sent out a couple of days ago, and I did not know about this question, superstitions for luck around the world. And, you get everything from like in Germany, you're supposed to eat carp and, keep the scales. I mean, weird stuff like that, In China, you're supposed to sweep the dirt from your door. You have another one in Denmark where they throw broken dishes at houses, all kinds of weird stuff, and then the standard American stuff, or the 4-leaf clover and the horseshoe. Well, I'm a big tennis fan, and I love Rafael Nadal, and he's from Spain, and so in Spain, one of the traditions that they have is to wear red underwear, and and I am wearing red underwear today for the Tigers and also for Alexis Lafreniere. But red is my favorite color, and I'm proving it to you because this is all underwear of mine, and it's all red, and it's all red. Now, I'm not that modest. I could show you my red underwear that I'm wearing today, but I had an incident a couple of days ago where my camera was on and I was changing. So Mark Milligan, our fine producer, let me know. So some of the crew have already seen me on Naturel, so we're not going to go down that road again.
We weren't live on that one.
No, I'm serious. I'm really serious. Hey, I thought the camera was off. I had no idea. I really had no idea. But I'm going to say because you know what? The draft starts at 5:00, so we don't have much time. I think everybody probably, I know Kenny has at least a couple of red underwear just sitting around the house, probably in various forms, from anywhere from a thong to boxer shorts. So that's the one that I would say, red underwear. That's what they do in Spain. It works for Rafael Nadal. It's going to work for me. That's the superstition I would follow.
All right, Ken. Well, you have to wear your red underwear today if you didn't get that memo. But I used to do the snow day things when I was a kid. You would pray for a snow day. So I used to wear my pajamas inside out. And this one might be weird. I don't know where I learned this one, but you put ice cubes in the toilet. So I'll do both of those today, and maybe it will work.
Well,
all
you
I
know,
can tell you is
Danielle,
that
if
my
you're a
right
man,
ear has Redwood logos
I was just going to say, sorry, Ken, I didn't mean to cut you off there. If you're a man, and Ken knows this, in urinals, sometimes you see ice cubes in the urinal. And I'm not quite
That's
sure
just
why,
like
but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a sanitary thing. I have no idea, but
well, everybody
it's
better
true.
be doing
It's
their
honest true.
wearing their red underwear, putting ice cubes in the toilet, whatever it is. We all need to be doing that through this entire MLB draft. All right, let's move on to our third question of the mailbag. Ken, this one goes back to you, and this is Nora from Rochester. Igor Larionov was named the Russian U20 head coach last week. If any player came back to coach the Wings and join Jeff Blashill's staff, who would you want?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Igor Larionov. He was a terrific hockey player, a cerebral player out there on the ice. And before I tell you what player I'd want back as a coach, I do have a story about Igor Larionov. He had such great vision on the ice that one day he had the puck and the other team had too many men on the ice. So while he was stick handling with the puck, he skated over to the referee, still in control of the puck. The other team was trying to get the puck away, and he was telling the linesman, hey, there's too many men on the ice, count them. And then he pulled it back a little bit, and you could see the linesman trying to count players. He went up to him again. He still has the puck, and he says, really, count them. They have too many men on the ice. Sure enough, up comes the hand, play stops, and with all that great vision, the other team had too many men on the ice. Red Wings go on the power play. But he is called the professor, and he's a terrific mind, a hockey mind, and I wish him all the best, and I think he's going to do really well. Now, to the question, what player would I want to come back on this team? I would have to say Nick Lidstrom. I mean, one of the greatest defensemen of all time. I mean, if he had an opportunity to spend a whole year as an assistant coach working on practices with the defensemen that the Red Wings have, and also all the young defensemen that are coming up, why not have him out there? And if he was willing to accept that position, you have the best and the best behind the bench who can work with these young players, teach them all about positioning, all about strategy on the ice, and just everything that a defenseman needs to know of where to be at all times and how to react. To me, that would be a great bonus. So whether or not that happens, I don't know, but why not have the best of the best back there? And if Nick Lidstrom could help the Red Wings Blue Liners, that would be a plus positive for Detroit.
Ken, I love that answer, and I think you might have to give Nick Lidstrom a call for us and try to convince him. I've never asked him if he was interested in coming back to coaching, but I think you could convince him.
I have to get on the Ship to Shore radio because I think he's out in Sweden on his big yacht out there, so I have to give him a call.
You will. And Art, I want to know your answer to this question too, but I'm going to let you know right now you cannot answer with Steve Yzerman, so it has to be somebody else.
No, I think Steve's pretty happy where he's at right now. I mean, it's really, really interesting. First to mind, because the Red Wings need, are rebuilding their defensive core, and they're going to have a lot of young defensemen. This blue line is going to be very young. Who better than Nick? Really, truly, Nick to come back, and I'm sure he'll come back as a consultant. For a guy that lives in Sweden and has a big yacht and some sort of like mansion that rivals, the palace where the King of Sweden stays. He's probably pretty happy in Sweden, but he seems to be back here quite often. So, I think we're going to eventually see him back here, at least as a special consultant helping out the young D. But a guy that I think would be great, and this is kind of off the board to come back, I think would be Slava Kozlov. Now, granted, there might be a bit of a language barrier, but Slava Kozlov was a very underrated goal scorer for the Red Wings. And as Kenny knows, he scored a lot of big goals for Detroit, especially come playoff time. And when they had to make a deal for Dominik Hasek, Buffalo wanted Slava Kozlov. And that was not an easy parting for Detroit. Kazi was part of the Russian Five, really tight with those guys, especially Sergei. So, if you're traded for Dominik Hasek, you're quite a player. I think Kozlov would be a very interesting coach because he wasn't big. He had a good shot. He's kind of like a Brett Hall from the standpoint, actually in a little bit better shape than Brett Hall was, but he could pick and find his spots and had a really high skill level. So I think Slava Kozlov might be the guy. But Nick, I also kind of, I'm answering out of both sides of my mouth as usual, but I've got to say, I agree with Kenny. I think Nick would be great.
Yeah, Nick, if you're listening, please give this some thought. All right. Let's move on to our fourth and final question of the mailbag, you guys. And this one is, we're going to start with Art on the answer. So Art, you'll go first. Kevin from Canton asks, did Jordy ever figure out what this was? Could it be Sasquatch? We got to take a look at the picture before we hear your answer, because I'm pretty convinced it's Sasquatch. I really don't know, but I'm convinced. Art, what do you think?
When I see that, I think it's a guy in a hazmat suit. Yeah, I really do. I mean, like a really big dude who's out there, and it's been recorded. Like a massive outbreak of either the pandemic, COVID-19, or there have been some sort of chemical spill. Doesn't it look like he even looks like he has like a spray gun or something? I mean, it could be Sasquatch. We all know Sasquatch exists, but I also want to know, he looks like a rather big dude. If this guy can play, if he can hit, or if he can skate, I think the Tigers and Red Wings should take a long, hard look at him, find him, sign this guy to a contract, and let's see. I mean, I am sure there's a lot of Sasquatches out there that really would love to be able to identify with a professional athlete. So why not the Tigers or the Wings? Let's be at the forefront of this. Let's start signing some Sasquatches. We know Steve is a pretty aggressive guy. If you think Mo Sider was off the board, wait till his next press conference is Steve introduces Sasquatch as the new Red Wing defenseman or something. I think that's probably the way I would go.
Ken, I think if we get Sasquatch to sign as a Red Wings defenseman, Nick Lidstrom would definitely come coach. So I don't think there could be anything wrong with figuring out how to get him in a Red Wings uniform.
Well, based on that picture, if he's 4 feet by 6 feet, I'd put him in goal and just tell him not to move. Just stay in there and block shots. But, you know what? Here's the thing. I think this COVID thing's got us all going bonkers. And I think Jordy had that camera out there, and he wanted something to do. So he actually put on his Halloween costume and went out there and walked in front of the camera and tried to put something on Twitter or whatever. But you know what? I can't figure it out. There's all these sightings about Sasquatch, whether it's in California or around the world. And with today's tracking and GPS and everything else, how come nobody can find the Sasquatch? I mean, that's what I don't get. So I just think maybe the guy had a nip of the grape or too much and went out there with his Halloween costume. He walked in front of the deer camera, and maybe later he didn't realize it, woke up and said, whoa, who is this guy out there? So that's what I think.
If Sasquatch can hit, I was just going to say, I'm not,
go ahead.
He could be a Red Wing, but if he can hit, why not? Who knows how many fingers Sasquatch has? He could be able to really grip a bat and just with a check swing, hit it out of Comerica, and that's a tough thing to do. So, hey, either way, Tiger, Red Wing, look at Sasquatch, consider signing him. Or her.
Ken, before we let you go, I just want to ask you really quickly here. We're going to have Spencer Torkelson joining us in just a couple of minutes, even less than that at this point. So I want you to give us your quick thoughts. How excited are you to have him in a Tigers uniform?
Oh, really excited. And what I really like is the fact that he's a positional player. And whether he plays first base or third base, the Tigers, every team can use a power hitter. And it looks like he's one of those guys that can translate his game from college to pros. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, there's no guarantees. But based on the way he can hit the ball and the way he can play the game, it's a really bright future for the Detroit Tigers. So a lot of times you'll see the Tigers or other teams that get the first pick go for a pitcher, because pitching is where you win ball games a lot. But you get a positional player that can belt the ball like Torque. I really like the pick, and I just think that the fans here in Detroit over the long run are going to see a very good baseball player. And a positional player is what the the Tigers need. And at first base or third base, wherever they put him, he's going to do well.
We're all really excited. And as I said, he's going to be joining us in just seconds at this point. So Ken, thank you so much for joining us today for the mailbag. And of course, thank you to our friends at Little Caesars for presenting the mailbag here on the Word on Woodward. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and runny pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. Art, we are just seconds away, as I said, from taking this press conference live with Spencer Torkelson. His first time really interacting with the Detroit media as a Detroit Tiger. What are you looking forward to hearing from Spencer?
I just want to see, I know he's going to be excited. I want to see what his own personal timeline is, as long as how far he thinks he has to go or how quickly he can make it to the majors.
Yeah, and you know what else I'm interested in, and what his conversations were leading up to the Tigers pick last night. Obviously, they were talking to different prospects. What were they talking to Spencer about, especially since they ultimately drafted him as a third baseman? So there was probably some interesting conversation leading up to that.
Right. I think they probably at first told him, hey, we're going to draft you, but when we call you at third base, don't be too shocked about it, and don't freak out about it, because we want you in the lineup to hit number one, and regardless, you're going to be playing for us.
All right. As I said, we're going to be joining the press conference live in just a few seconds. Everybody, Spencer Torkelson, the 1-1 pick from last night. Art, we know there's a lot going on with this draft too. So it's not just this pick. The Tigers got 4 more picks in this draft. What is the next thing that you think they will address?
Well, really watching the draft last night, the way that it kind of fell, I think, call me crazy, I think they're going to go for a pitcher with that 38th pick. I really do. I think that you can never have enough arms. Unfortunately, pitchers get hurt a lot, because of the stress on their arm. I think the hardest thing to do in all of professional sports is throw a baseball and then hit a baseball than an NHL goalie. I think that's how the top 3 break down. And, and I'm not wishing ill will on anybody, but, arms are fragile. They're a weird thing. And if you can get a guy who many would believe would be in the top 20 if this were a normal year for drafting, I think they might go with another arm at 38.
Yeah, with an already impressive pitching prospect. Like I said, we're getting ready here. I'm getting word that they're setting up the press conference right now. So just a couple of seconds, you guys. Oh, and here we go. Just got it. They're ready to go. So let's talk to Spencer Torkelson live with the Detroit media.
It was like the greatest moment of your life. You had a night to sleep. Did you get any sleep? And how are you feeling today?
Barely, to answer the question. You're right. It was such an incredible night. And I didn't sleep very well the last 2 nights. It was kind of just so much adrenaline going through you, and it's insane.
Did you hear from anybody today that you might not have expected? Somebody come out of the woodwork?
No, I'm sure. I haven't been on my phone too much. It might explode by now, but Pete Alonso DM'd me, and that was pretty sweet.
Thanks, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Next, we'll go to Jeff Seidel of the Detroit Free Press.
Hey, Spencer, it's Jeff. How you doing?
Great.
Good. I think when we talked in February, you talked a little bit about your freshman year, and you were going to play some other field positions. Were you surprised last night when they said third base? And what's your reaction to that? And how much experience do you have at third?
I wasn't surprised. I'm sure some people were, but I've said it over, and it's just like, as a baseball player, you're on that field to win, and you're going to do whatever it takes. And if it's at third base, if it's in left, first base, wherever, second base, you're there to win, and you're going to get the job done, in my eyes.
Do you have a lot of experience at third?
Oh yeah, I've been on the left side of the diamond. I mean, I'm sure you watch MLB Network or ESPN. They had the 12-year-old highlights at shortstop. It wasn't too pretty, but I've been over there. That was just as a 12-year-old, so don't blame me. But yeah, I'm comfortable over there.
Thanks, Jeff. Next, we'll go to Jason Lewis, ABC 12.
Hey, Spencer. Congratulations. How excited are you to be a Tiger? And what do you know about the city of Detroit? Have you ever been there or experienced what Tiger fans bring to the stadium at Comerica Park?
I've heard so much the last 24 hours about how great Detroit is, and I haven't heard one bad thing, so that's obviously good. And I know Detroit's got a lot of diehard Tigers fans and Red Wings and some Lions fans, so it's an exciting time in Detroit, and it's an honor to join the ride.
Thanks, Jason. Next, we'll go to Brad Galley, Channel 7.
Spencer, congratulations, man. We were watching all the clips last night, and I think the raw emotion was just so pure to see on your face, even knowing that you were at least going to go high. I heard at one point you said you didn't honestly know you were going to go number 1 overall, but I'm curious how many conversations you had with the Tigers ahead of time and how much confidence you had and maybe a relationship down the road with them ahead of the draft.
I've always believed in my ability, and I've thought I was the best player in the draft, and I've worked my butt off to get to this point. So I was confident, but we've had conversations, and the draft is it's crazy. Everyone says it's so unpredictable. So you never know. So that you're gonna have some doubt, and I didn't get that. They didn't call me before the pick, and that scared the living crap out of me. But it was literally the best feeling ever. I can't even describe it.
And if I could follow up, this team is obviously in a rebuilding phase, and you're going to be a big part of it. They need a star. They need a big hitter. There's pressure that comes with being a baseball player, and there's pressure that comes with being the number 1 overall pick. But how much do you look forward to the opportunity to be a guy that can help turn a franchise around?
Oh my gosh, pressure's a privilege, and everyone, a lot of people try to say, pressure. There's no such thing as pressure. I truly believe in that. It's a privilege, and that pressure, whatever you want to call it, it drives me. It makes me work harder, and I don't let it faze me. Really, it's a privilege to be in the position I'm in, and you just got to run away with it.
Thanks, Brad. Next, we'll go to Daniela Bruce.
Actually, I was just typing in the chat that my question was answered. Brad had the same question I did, but I will ask you this. You mentioned the Red Wings already, and I hear that you're a hockey fan as well. So how excited are you to be involved in, Hockey Town and coming to Red Wings games now that you'll be in Detroit?
Oh, I love hockey. I grew up, I think I played maybe 5 or 6 years growing up. And it's such a great sport, and it's so much fun to watch, and I love live games. So yeah, hopefully catch a couple Red Wings games. Maybe get on the ice. That'd be awesome.
Thank you, Spencer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniela. Next, we'll go to Chris McCoskey of the Detroit News.
Hey, welcome to Detroit, Spence.
Thank you so much.
We got to get you some Tiger gear, man. That Arizona State stuff is.
I know. I wore like a similar polo yesterday. I promise it's a different one.
no judgment, man. Hey, I was wondering, what are you gonna? Have they talked to you about what's next? Like, where will you go? Where will you play? How will you get started? You know what I mean? We go down to Florida for a while now and work out at the facility.
It's such a time of it's so unpredictable, and that conversation is for down the road. We're enjoying the moment right now, and things are going to happen, but there's it's such a weird time that it's unknown at this point.
For sure. Were you aware that Alan Trammell, Hall of Famer, was so big on scouting you and had such a big voice in getting you here?
I had no idea. It's an honor.
Thank you, Spence. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next, we'll go to Jeff Metcalf. Jeff, make sure you unmute.
Hey, Spencer. How are you?
Good, Jeff. How you doing?
Hey, I just wondered from the ASU end of it, who were you able to talk to? Were you able to talk to Alika, Tracy, Hunter, those kind of people yesterday? And what was that conversation like?
Yeah, so Hunter was at my house. Connor Higgins was at my house. Brady Corrigan, Nick Chima, and Dom Cashone, because he's from Northern California, was also at my house. And so I had teammates here, and then I FaceTimed Alika after he got picked. We were all in my court around. I don't even know what time Alika got picked. I think it was around 7. I want to say he was the last pick in the day. And my buddy Brady, he's on like the draft tracker. He's like, oh, Alika got picked, so. we just went wild for Alika. It's such a cool moment to share it with all my friends and teammates and family. It was awesome.
Thanks, Jeff. Next, we'll go to Trevor Thompson, Fox Sports Detroit.
Congratulations, Spencer. And I was just wondering, through the pandemic, it's a two-part question. Through the pandemic, how do you feel that maybe some of your progress has been halted, not being able to play live ball? And what have you been doing to keep yourself in shape, keep your mind and body active through all of this?
I don't think my progress has been halted at all. I mean, it's kind of like an extended off season. If you treat it that way, you still got to work hard, and it's a blessing in disguise. People's bodies are getting the breaks they need, and then just you got to get stronger, more flexible, and you got to hit more baseballs, in the batting cage, getting ready. It just makes it that much sweeter when you get onto the field.
What have you been doing with yourself, your family, or whoever you've been hanging out with? What have you been doing during this time?
Yeah, luckily my best friend owns a gym, and so his dad lets us go in there. But I also built a batting cage in my backyard, but the net was probably made for like a 10-year-old. I put a hole in it in the first 2 weeks. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, but ended up I just commute to my high school field and hit there, which is nice.
Well, thanks a lot, and congratulations. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Next, we'll go to Anthony Fennick from the Detroit Free Press.
Spencer, congratulations. I guess my first question's for Scott. Scott,
hey, Anthony.
Are we just doing Spencer right now?
Yes.
Sorry, I missed that. I missed that. Sorry. Yeah. Spencer, playing third base. How much have you played in your career? When did you know the Tigers were going to announce you as a third baseman? And what do you think going forward? Are you looking forward to the challenge?
Yeah, I've played a lot of third base in my life, and I don't look at it as a challenge. And I've always worked hard, and just give me a couple reps over there, and I'll be even more comfortable. But the first time I knew they were drafting me as a third baseman was when the commissioner said, Spencer Torkelson, third baseman.
So how surprised were you when you heard that? And when's the last time you played third base?
Last time I played third base, I mean, I got a lot of reps there in the fall. A lot of both falls all 3 falls at ASU. I love baseball, and playing anywhere, a different glove. You get more gloves. That's the bright side of it, all of it.
And I guess the last one for me. For a year now, the fans have been getting really excited to potentially get the position to draft you. How much did you hear about this? What does that mean to you? I guess the whole last year, hearing your name associated with the Tigers and the fan base, what does that kind of mean to you?
You get tagged in things on social media, and it feels good. It always feels good to be wanted, and it's a pretty incredible feeling to have people backing me up and believing in me.
Thanks a lot, man. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thanks, Anthony. Next, we'll go to Cameron Cox.
Hey, Spencer. Cameron Cox here from 12 News in Phoenix. Congratulations. Just curious, ASU has a rich history of #1 picks, and you're part of that rich history of ASU baseball. Just what's that like to be a part of that legacy and leave your mark on the place you went to college?
Could you repeat the beginning of that question? Sorry, my dog's going wild.
Yeah, no problem. ASU has a rich history of #1 picks, and you're a part of that now. And the legacy of ASU baseball, everybody knows very well. Just what's it like to now kind of etch your name in that history?
Oh, it's unbelievable to be, in the same conversation as those amazing players and their careers is it's special. And you got to realize that it's just a start, because they did more than me. They might have gone first overall, but they went on and were successful, and that's my next mission.
Thanks, Cameron. Next, we'll take a question from Carly Johnston.
Hey, Spencer, welcome to Detroit.
Thank you so much.
All right. So first off, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts about possibly playing in a stadium without fans?
It's definitely going to be different. Watching it in the KBO, it's different, and it's kind of cool. They have fun with it. I know some German soccer league. They said fans can pay like $25 for like a poster of them in a seat, so that's pretty cool. But it doesn't matter. I mean, you play to win, and if you play to win, you're not worried about the fans anyways. You're kind of just locked into the game. So for me, if I were to play with no fans in the stands, I mean, I like playing fall ball, and there's no fans in the stands. It's a weird time, but we'll make it work.
Absolutely. Okay. Speaking of fans, I have to ask about your relationship with Guy Fieri. We saw him tweet about you getting drafted. Where did that friendship come from?
Yeah, Guy's such a great guy. He's the man. Yeah. So my mom's a CFO for the last 6 or 7 years, and he's been unbelievable. So down to earth, and he cooks a mean brisket. I promise you, it's unreal. But yeah, he's such a good dude, and to have him on my side it's special.
Love it. Okay, last question. Where did your love for hockey come from?
I don't know. Growing up, there was a hockey team like 20 minutes away from my house at Snoopy's home ice, Charles Schultz's place, and I probably saw San Jose Sharks game, and they're hitting each other, and a couple guys have no teeth. I thought it was kind of cool, So hey mom, can I play some hockey? At like 7 years old. So yeah, that's pretty much how it started.
Very cool. Well, it seems like baseball worked out for you. I can't wait to see you with the Old English D on your chest.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carly. Next, we got a question from Jacob Rudner.
Hey, Spencer, congratulations.
Thanks.
So I was talking to your dad in the days leading up to the draft, and he was just saying that this whole journey for you guys has almost been so surreal, from where you were out of high school, not getting drafted, and the improvement you made throughout college, and then this season getting canceled. Can you just tell me, leading up to the draft, what was it like for you, thinking back on everything that you've gone through career-wise to get to this point?
It's so hard to put words to the feeling of where I was and where I am now, but you gotta just thank everyone around me that had my back and always believed in me, like my parents, my friends, teammates, coaches, hometown. Everyone knew I had it in me, and so I think getting undrafted out of high school was the best thing to ever happen to me, and just made me work so much harder, and it put everything in perspective for me, and then being where I am now, it's pretty really special.
Thank you. We got time for one or two more. We'll go to Richard Sines.
Hey, Spencer. Richard Sines here, Fox 10 Phoenix. I kind of like that ASU gear on you. We're going to enjoy it as much as we can before you start wearing Tiger stuff. But, speaking of ASU, how much do you think your time at ASU, one of the best programs in the country, and playing in the Pac-12, one of the toughest conferences in the country, has helped prepare you for this next stage in your life, this next level of baseball?
Yeah, this is the reason I picked ASU. They call it MLBU for a reason, and the alumni that walk the same halls as you, and it's a great place to play. And my coaches, Mike Early, Greenspan, even JK and Skip, they're unbelievable coaches, unbelievable guys, and they truly made me a better. And I got to shout out the athletic trainer and the weight coach, because they all help contribute to this, and they know what they're doing over there, and it was so fun to be a part of it, and yeah.
When follow up, obviously the season cut short, disappointing to have that happen, especially when you're so close to shattering these records. Does going number one overall kind of alleviate that pain?
That might trump it, trump the 3 home runs I didn't get to hit. But again, I've said it. It's just like we needed to take a step back. We needed to not play the rest of our season for our world and our health. So when you put things into perspective like that, it makes it a little easier because you can't control that. Control what you can control, and just do that.
Thank you. Best of luck. You're gonna do great over there. I just know it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We'll take the next question from Josh Schaefer.
Hey, Spencer. Congrats, man.
Josh, how you doing? Thank you.
You know, you kind of, like you said, coming out of high school undrafted and then going to ASU, playing on the Cape. Is there a specific moment maybe either at ASU or on the Cape where you kind of thought, like, I think this could happen for myself and for my family?
Going undrafted out of high school, the second, like 5 minutes after the 40th round ended on the third day in 2017, I called up my uncle, called my buddies. I was like, let's go hit at Casa. I just want to try to hit balls as hard as I can and, you know, get over this because I told myself I'm going to be a first rounder out of ASU. And I think I realized that was an opportunity for me. It was maybe, you know, 4 games into my freshman year. I was like, damn, I'm doing pretty good at this thing. Let's keep going.
Congrats, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. We've got time for one more. We'll take John Shea from the San Francisco Chronicle. John, make sure you turn your your mute off.
Okay. Yeah, how's that? Sorry.
That's good. Yep, go ahead.
Here we go.
Yeah, congratulations, Spencer.
Thank you.
You know, normally draftees after the draft talk about signing quickly, getting out on the field, and play the end of the minor league season. What will you have to do to keep your competitive juices flowing in Petaluma? Because all you've done is compete this time of year, and now you can't.
Yeah, trust me. I've been competing. You know, cornhole. I played cornhole till probably like 11 last night. Ping pong. The competitive juices are always running through me. I promise you. So it's not going to be a challenge to get back on the ball field.
And just curious, why do you think you didn't get drafted out of high school?
What was that? Sorry.
Why do you think you didn't get drafted out of high school?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't polished. You know, being high school, you don't know very much. And then Northern California doesn't get crazy amount of respect in the high school ranks. It's mostly Southern California that gets all the love, and yeah, that's probably 2 reasons.
Thanks.
Thanks, John. Thanks for all your questions for Spencer. With that, we're going to let Spencer log off and enjoy the rest of his Thursday. Spencer, thanks again for joining us. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Later.
Hey,
Bye,
Spencer.
everyone.
Nice job, buddy. Spencer. See you,
Later.
Torque.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
Good stuff.
We will.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, now.
Great to hear from Spencer Torkelson, your newest Tiger. Right now, we're going to talk more about what he had to say. Let's bring back Art Regner. And joining us now, Dan Dickerson, the voice of the Detroit Tigers for the radio. Dan, it was great to hear from Spencer there. And I think the biggest thing that we all wanted to hear was how confident he is that he could play third base. And let me tell you, the kid seems like he's really confident that he could go in there and kill it at third base too.
He doesn't seem to be lacking, does he? And I love it. I love that the Tigers last night announced him as a third baseman, even though first base has been his position in college. As everybody's heard by now, he was recruited as. Watch him. I mean, they showed highlights of him last night, not just hitting it in the field, but running the bases. You can really get a feel for the athleticism of somebody watching them run the bases. And this kid runs the bases. It's not just power, it's the complete package. And the Tigers are clearly signaling, yes, we know about the bat, but this is a guy who has the skills to play third base. That is a tough position to fill. Everybody expects the power. To combine that power with somebody who can hit for average and has the glove. Think about it. In Tigers history, that combination of good glove and good bat at third base, heck, in baseball history, that's a rare combination. We're in the golden age right now with some of the third basemen out there, and Chapman, Arenado, Josh Donaldson, but this is a big deal that he could be at third base. It takes special skills to be there, and clearly the Tigers feel he has them, and that's an exciting thought that you could have a third baseman of the future for many.
Art, let me ask you this, because I know he answered the question that you said you were excited to hear the answer to, and that was basically how he feels about the third base situation, what the process was leading up to that. So what did you think about his responses?
I found it was curious that he didn't know they were going to announce him as a third baseman. It was the first time he found out was when the Tigers said that. But the whole thing. First of all, Danielle, I agree with you. I think he's really, really a confident kid. But he seems to have, and maybe not being drafted or being doubted. He has kind of a chip on his shoulder. But it's a good chip on. It's like a happy chip on his shoulder. He doesn't seem, bitter about anything that's happened to him. Maybe that comes with being drafted the first player overall in your draft. He's giving the one finger salute to a lot of people right now. That kind of doubted him. So I think it's really interesting how he is just very effervescent, almost nonchalant in his approach, and like, hey, I'm going to be in Comerica Park before you know it. I don't third base, first base, hell, I don't care where, but I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player, and I'm going to be playing for Detroit. That's what I got out of it. But he wasn't arrogant about it. When he said, when they said, well, the guy from the San Francisco Chronicle says, well, how are you going to keep your competitive juices flowing? And we all know this from covering professional athletes and high-end Division I college athletes, just athletes in general. They're all competitive. What does he start talking about? Playing cornhole till 11 o'clock and playing ping pong. That's, he's out to win no matter what he does. That's the kind of attitude you like. I found him absolutely refreshing. I think he is going to be just a lot of fun, not only to watch, but talk to when he gets into Detroit, which I think is going to be pretty darn soon.
Dan, let's stay on that topic right there. Spencer Torkelson is expected that he could be on a fast track to Detroit. How quick do you think that actually is?
All right. I know everybody who might be listening is like, you're nuts about this. But hey, where are you going to play ball this year? That's the big question, right? There are no minor leagues, it doesn't appear, to go to. What's the problem with giving him a 20-game audition in this 50-game season, or 50, whatever it's going to be, 60-game season this year? Give him that little audition. Everybody's like, no, you're starting the clock. Okay, but you do it with the understanding he'll probably be in the minor leagues all of next year, and then he'll hit his way to the major leagues in 2021. That's not going to happen. I'm just saying, let's think outside the box. Everything's different this year. But in a normal year, I would say if it's a normal year, he goes to the minor leagues, and by the end of this year, he probably could have made it. I really believe this, to AA. This guy is, when you hear about a guy who's as polished as anybody has seen in terms of major league ready in 30 years, that's a guy who ends up at AA by the end of it. Next year, he would have been at AAA at some point, and then maybe debuted in the major leagues next year. Again, I understand the clock thing, believe me. But if a guy's pushing his way to the major leagues, once he debuts in, past the month of April, you've got him for the rest of that year and 6 more years. So you don't necessarily have to delay him another year if he's forcing his way to the major leagues. And I think the Tigers have been pretty good about that. Guys ready for the major leagues, you get him to the major leagues. I understand the clock thing, and I understand that any general manager in the league is going to make sure that you can get that extra playing time. But this is a kid who's on the fast track, and he's a guy who would, I think, in a normal year, might, even given these abnormal times.
Dan, one last question for you. Obviously, we've got our guy, we've got the big hitter. What are the Tigers going to address with their next few picks here?
Great question. I've been looking over some of the most talented players. You've got a catcher who I think everybody agrees is, one of the top players out there right now. Do a quick check because I have my top 10 list. But you got a catcher out of Ohio State who's probably right up there. I think that's a really good pretend. Remember, the Tigers had the first pick on day 2. It's a lot of college pitchers, and it's interesting to me that you've got a lot of college pitchers, Daniela, who are on this list. I'm talking about the guys that are the highest rated guys on draft boards right now. 2 of those are college pitchers who both had Tommy John this spring. Can't picture the Tigers draft But there are college pitchers out there, hard throwers, mostly from the right side, upper 90s stuff that are available. My guess would be that it's going to be a catcher or a pitcher. There are a couple of high school players that you might be taking a little more of a chance on. But those are guys that I think that the Tigers might take a chance on, might be the perfect guys to take a chance on in round 2. They've made it clear they're going to try to balance their picks across the spectrum of position players and pitchers when you only got 5. So it's not going to be a bunch of pitchers from here on out. I would say a catcher, maybe a high school outfielder, very much in the cards to me in the next couple of picks, next 3 picks.
All right, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, we'll be sure to have you back very soon to talk about the rest of the Tigers draft here. I know you'll be paying some very close attention. So as I said, thanks so much for joining us.
All right, guys, always good talking with you.
Thank you, Dan. And now, guys, we're going to bring in Carly Johnston, too, because she has been all over the social media. She was also a part of Spencer Torkelson's Zoom conference that we just saw. So, Carly, what do you got for us today?
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, with Spencer Torkelson being the first overall draft pick last night, I wanted to dedicate this segment to him and a couple social media posts I saw circulating around. First, the Tigers posted this awesome quote from Scott Plies, the Tigers director of amateur scouting of Torkelson. He said, quote, "He's one of the most polished hitters we've seen in the draft for quite some time." I mean, that's a big thing to say about a young player. So I can't wait to see Torkelson make a splash in the league when the season resumes and he makes his way up to the MLB to play with the Tigers. And then last but certainly not least, I saw this tweet from none other than Guy Fieri, congratulating Spencer. Odd pair, right? I mean, who would have thought they were friends? I know I didn't think anything of it, but turns out I asked Spencer during the press conference, Torkelson's mom is Guy Fieri's CFO. So that's where that relationship comes from. So interesting person to have in your corner, but definitely good person to have in your corner. Spencer said he makes a killer brisket. So maybe after his first debut with the Tigers, I think Guy Fieri will start cooking up in Comerica Park. I'm not sure, but definitely an odd pair, but something cool to see.
Carly, that would probably have to be my new favorite thing at Comerica Park. I know last show I answered the big slushy drinks would be my favorite thing, but if Guy Fieri starts cooking at Comerica Park, that would probably be my new favorite thing. So we might have to try to make that one happen. And during that press conference, Spencer Torkelson also said that he's a pretty big hockey fan. So why don't we talk some hockey? Guest is Alan Letang, and he's the head coach of the OHL's Owen Sound Attack. Oh, Alan, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excellent.
We appreciate you joining us, and I kind of want to kick this off by telling us a little bit about yourself. For people who may not know who you are, what do you do with Hockey Team Canada, and then as well as the Owen Sound Attack?
Yeah, well, I spend my summers in Sarnia, Ontario, just across from Port Huron. I've been 5 seasons with the Owen Sound Attack in the OHL, 3 seasons as an assistant coach, and then 2 seasons as the head coach. I've worked for quite a few years now with Hockey Canada in their development process through U17, U18, and then this past Christmas at the U20 tournament in Ostrava. So I've been fortunate enough to have a lengthy playing career, and it's kind of just followed into a little bit of a coaching career that hopefully I can continue to build on.
Alan, you have seen some of the Red Wings' current prospects come through, including Joe Veleno and Jared McIsaac, who were actually a part of Canada's World Junior Championship team earlier this year. Let's stick on Joe Veleno specifically for a minute. He's a really exciting prospect for the Red Wings. From what you've seen of him, what type of player is he?
Yeah, I mean, a great kid. He came over as one of the few returning players to that U20 team, and really took a huge leadership role with Jared and with Barrett Hayton. So I know the coaching staff and myself, we relied on him heavily. He was kind of that utility guy. He played up and down our lineup when we needed guys, won a lot of key face-offs, ran our power play, killed some penalties for us. We got into the semifinals and finals. He was in charge of more of a shutdown role too. So just a real good kid, works really hard, thinks the game really well. I don't think he's the flashiest skater, but you know what? Sometimes you can think yourself around the ice, and when you can make those little soft plays and read the ice well, he's going to have a nice career to follow.
Do you think he has the talent to make it to the Red Wings next season?
Yeah, I would have thought that right after the tournament, before all this stuff has happened. I'm not sure how they're going to progress with not being able to maybe have training camps, with guys not being able to train the way they normally would. With gyms being closed. I know a lot of our kids are doing virtual workouts, and you're kind of limited to what you can do at home, so you can't really get the gains or the development that you would. I'm hopefully, July, August, things kind of get back to normal and these kids can really push for a training camp. And that's where, as coaches and GMs, you really want to see what a kid's like in exhibition. You want to see what he's like as he develops through that training camp. And, and I think it's going to put a few of those bubble kids in a position where it's easier for a team to say, go back down and develop a little bit quicker, and we'll kind of see how you start there. And who even knows if the American League's gonna start on time. So it's, with all this uncertainty, I think it'd be tough for those kids to stay highly motivated like they normally do through a summer.
Let's switch gears a little bit, Al, and talk about the upcoming NHL draft and some of the prospects. The Red Wings are in a really good position. They have a really good shot at getting the #1 overall pick, which everyone thinks is going to be Alexis Lafreniere, which you also have had some experience with. We've heard of how special he is as a player, but kind of describe your experiences with him. And do you think he is going to be that #1 pick?
Yeah, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I think he is the consensus #1. There's lots of talent. Quinton Byfield's got that size at center. He's got that raw talent. But Alexis, he was a go-to for us. He came up big for us. He's come up big numerous times for his team. Loves the game, thinks the game, lives and breathes the game. There's not a day that I saw him at the rink that he wasn't smiling, wasn't talking hockey, wasn't laughing, wasn't, kind of businesslike at times. So he's that mold of Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, all those guys, the Dylan Larkins that just, they just love hockey and they just live and breathe it. And not saying that the other guys don't, but I think he's the clear cut. And there's some good players, Jamie Drysdale. I said Byfield earlier. There's the Tim Stutzel. He's a German guy. Maybe Detroit goes that way now that they have Moritz Seider. Maybe they need another German connection up there.
It's really interesting. I wanted to get back before we get into some of today's prospects. Jared McIsaac, another guy. I go back to that 2018 draft when the Red Wings got Zadina, Veleno, Bergeron, and then McIsaac. They thought that they had 4 #1s, and Bergeron and McIsaac were taken in the second round. McIsaac had the shoulder surgery. It's kind of I can say the word on Woodward. I can't say shoulder surgery. But with that said, I'm kind of curious. I know the Red Wings were hoping that he would be ready for the World Juniors, which he was. He was in Halifax. He was traded. What can you tell us about him? Because obviously the Red Wings are very, very high on Jared McIsaac.
Yeah, another great kid. And like you said, he came off that shoulder surgery. I think he had played 2 exhibition games before he came into our training camp. And he was another guy that was one of the few returning players that our World Junior team had. So they were hoping and we were kind of praying that he was going to be that anchor on the back end with Ty Smith. And, there's always that reluctance when you come in, only have played 2 games. But, as our camp progressed, as the tournament progressed, he just got stronger and stronger. And another guy, he thinks the game. He's not the bruising physical defenseman, but the game's kind of trended the other way where he just moves pucks, he skates well, he's got a great stick off the rush, and again he anchored with Ty Smith, that decor for us, and willing to block shots, all those little intangibles that GMs and coaches love. And like you said, that the Red Wings are a pretty exciting team coming up with all those young prospects. Moritz Seider is a very special kid. We would have loved Stevie Y to send him to Owen Sound this year, but he kept him in Grand Rapids, unfortunately. He would have played like 30 minutes for me, probably.
Was there any discussion? Was there any discussion about, did you, lobbying Steve Yzerman, I would imagine, would be pretty hard once his mind is made up. but was there talk of, because I know it was Germany or the O or Grand Rapids where he ended up staying. How much of a possibility was that?
Well, we were always hoping. I'm not sure. I think our GM, Dale DeGray, called him a couple times just to kind of feel him out. But I don't think there was any doubt that he was probably not coming back to junior. But we were kind of hoping, saying, hey, listen, if you're looking for a guy to play all situations, learn how to play, 27 minutes a night for us and come. But it was pretty tough for me to call, my childhood idol, Steve Yzerman, up and say, hey, you got a defenseman there that I'd love to, kind of develop for you. But I left that up to Dale DeGray, and we kept our fingers crossed until we got the final word.
So the Red Wings are in position to get another great pick with their first round pick. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. We don't know which one yet. But you mentioned guys like Quinton Byfield and Jamie Drysdale, Tim Stützle, and we already talked about Alexei Lafreniere. When you look at that group of guys, it could be the top 4. That's kind of what we're assuming right there. But do you think all of those guys could make an immediate impact in the NHL?
I think all of those guys have good potential to have very long careers. We talked about, Alex. We talked about Quinton's upside. Like, not very often you find a 6'4" center that, has size already. As he develops and as he gets older and more mature, he's just going to get stronger, and he's going to be that imposing guy at center, like a Kopitar type guy, right? Just with that big. You've got a Jamie Drysdale, who's another puck moving defenseman that's ultra smart. I think he's so smart the way he, comes in at that age and the way he produced at the World Junior Championship for us. He's got a bright career. So really anywhere from 1 to 4, you're going to get a pretty special prospect. That the German kid, Tim Stützle, high skill, very dynamic, challenges guys one-on-one, very exciting player. So really it's how you want to break your team down, what you're looking for in that draft. And I think any team would be over the moon to have a top 4 pick and really take their choice at what they're looking for.
If they fall to 4 and they end up getting Jamie Drysdale, everything I have heard, Alan, is he is a definitive number 1 defenseman in the NHL. He's not a 1 or a 2. He is a number 1. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think that's a pretty clear assessment. Like I talked about how smart this kid was, and how he skates, he closes time and space. His gap, his skating is incredible. You look at some of those high octane teams like Colorado with Makar, and they have Girard, and if you move the puck from the back end and you never spend time in your own zone because it's going the other way with smart defensemen, McIsaac, Seider, Drysdale, you're a pretty tough team to play, and you've got a pretty exciting back end to go forward with, right, and getting pucks into your forwards' hands. So teams are starting to build from the back end out, and to have 3 pretty legit prospects that way, and then plus what they have in Grand Rapids, they could really fill out the back end well.
So we've talked about these top prospects that we all already know about. We're heading into this draft. Is there anybody that would be sort of a hidden gem, or somebody that's not talked about as much that you're looking forward to seeing where they go and what they do in the NHL?
There's some of those intangibles, right? You have the Russian goalie out of Askarov. He was that high end prospect that didn't have the tournament he wanted. Dropped a little bit in the draft. There's always some of those European players that sneak into the draft. Sweden's got the 2 Rehmann kids. Are they potentially the new Sedins, that kind of stuff? There's some interesting talent level in this draft. I think teams in the first round, lots of high end right up until the end of the first round moving forward. So it'll be very interesting. It's too bad that like I said, you don't get to go see it live, and it might be just done online, because you won't get the buzz when you're there, and those kids won't feel that buzz when they're in there. But there'll be some maneuvering. There'll for sure be some teams moving up to grab prospects that they want, and it'll be I think there could be potentially lots of movement in this year's draft.
Thank you, Alan. Great to have you. And a big thank you to our friends at Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockey Town this week and every week here on The Word on Woodward. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Alan Letang, another thank you for joining us for Downtown Hockey Town today. A lot of draft talk on this show. We've been focusing on the MLB draft, which is happening now as we speak. Well, it starts later. Round 2 will start later tonight. But on this NHL draft stuff, Alan Letang was a really great guy to talk to. And Art, one of the things that I took away from that was that the Red Wings are going to get a solid pick, no matter it be 1 through 4. We don't know exactly when the NHL draft is going to be, but what we do know is that the first part of the lottery is coming up in just a couple of weeks. It will be on June 26th. So we could find out where the Red Wings are picking in that sense, which could kind of change. The draft's a little bit confusing, but the first part of the lottery will be on the 26th.
Right. And now, if the Red Wings are fortunate enough to get the number 1 pick on that date, on the 26th, where they'll have the draft lottery for the top 7 teams that did not qualify for the playoffs. That's why I'll be wearing red underwear every day until the 26th for good luck. Then that's not going to change. That won't change. If they get the number, if they win the draft lottery on the 26th, and Alexis Lafreniere is definitely going to be a Red Wing. The thing that I really like, I think if they really had their druthers, so to speak, I think the Red Wings would really like to get into the top 3 and get one of the high-end forwards. They need goal scoring. They need forwards. Their blue line is coming together nicely, but at number 4, Jamie Drysdale doesn't sound like a consolation prize. He sounds like a real prize. That a guy that is a definitive number 1, you hear it all the time. That could be something that that maybe Steve and the Red Wings scouting staff, led by Chris Draper, that they might go with. So I still have high hopes out for Askarov as a goalie, but I think 4 is probably a little too high, and he'll never fall down into the second round for the Red Wings. So it'll be interesting to see. Just wear your red underwear. That's our battle cry.
And Art, never say never. You don't know.
That's right. It'd be great. Yeah. And hey, they deserve a break. They definitely deserve a break.
Yeah. Right. It's definitely unlikely they get a goalie or a guy like Askarov in the second round. But I don't want to hear you say never, because this draft is going to work out for the Red Wings. I can promise you that. Okay.
That sounds great, Danielle. I mean, if you say it, I believe it.
There needs to be more people that say that, Art, just like you do. Well, guys, like I said, we are in the middle of MLB draft week, so let's get back to talking some more baseball with a former Tigers first-round pick. Now let's get into the Brush Street Beat presented by our friends at McLaren. And you guys, we've got a very special guest with us today, Tigers pitching prospect Alex Faedo. And we've heard some really great things about what was going on in spring training. What was the experience like for you?
It was awesome. The veteran guys up there in the big league clubhouse did a great job at showing us young, inexperienced guys kind of how to be a better professional, how to be a better pitcher and teammate. And I'm really glad I got the time to work with them. I learned a lot, but also, I also can't wait to hopefully be on the same team as them one day.
Alex, when I first became aware of you, and I think maybe all of America did, was in the College World Series when you were pitching for the Gators. You're the most outstanding player. I've always been curious, when you're in that kind of zone and dominance, what's going through your mind? Do you go back to the dugout or you're looking at yourself saying, yeah, I'm pretty good today? Or how did that kind of play out in your own mind? Because you were lights out, and then you become a Tiger, which is even better.
Yeah, the Tiger part was awesome. I feel like I just kind of keep reminding myself that as no matter how good you're doing out there, it can change. 2 or 3 hitters, 3 runs could be on the board. I just try to stay locked in, stay in the moment. I just try to focus and not let anyone down. None of my teammates, my coaches, my family, friends, stuff like that are watching, cheering me on. So I kind of just I don't think I ever have to really remind myself, but I think there's times throughout the game where you see the guys working really hard behind you, especially how much the catchers care, and it just motivates me.
And ultimately winning that College World Series, that has to be one of the highlights of your baseball career so far. Can you just walk us through what that was like? And even some of the moments after that had to be so much fun.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so special to be part of the first team to ever win a national championship at the University of Florida. Actually, on SEC Network last night, they had our national championship game, the one we clinched the finals on. So it was really nice to see that. Brought a whole bunch of good memories back. And it was cool to watch it from a different perspective, not just from the dugout. That was the first time I watched it from the camera angle.
Being a Florida native, were you always a baseball player? I mean, from the moment you were a little boy, that was the game you gravitated to, or did you play a variety of sports?
Yeah, my dad coaches high school baseball here in the area, so I think once I could start walking or whatever, he started pushing me to baseball. I played a little bit of football and basketball growing up, but I love all sports, just the competitive part. I think my dad wanted me to be a catcher growing up, and that didn't work out at all. But this body just could never be a catcher. But at least I'm still playing ball.
So when did you know you wanted to be a pitcher then? You knew catcher was out of the question, but when did you know it was pitching that was your thing?
I always liked pitching. It's just I had like a little arm problem when I was in like 6th grade, so I like had to stop pitching and just focus on hitting. My dad wanted to be really cautious with me, so he just kind of held me away from the mound. And then my junior year of high school, we needed some more arms. We were getting a little thin, so then he was like, "All right, well, it's fall ball. It's time for you to start getting some innings, and we might need you this year to come out of the bullpen." I worked my tail off. That was probably the start of me ever really trying to work hard. I think it was just like a goal I wanted to accomplish, that I could be a vital part of the team and help them out. And then I ended up kind of picking it up pretty naturally. I pitched well. I actually thought I won the starting job in the fall, but then I think my dad didn't want it to be like coach's son gets to be the starting pitcher, and he just learned how to pitch. So he made me kind of have to earn it over the half year. And then eventually I became starting. I've just been starting ever since, but it's been awesome. Each year I feel like I keep getting better and learning more and more. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I'm still new to it, even though it's been like 5 or 6 years now.
Well, when you understand you're going to be a pitcher, they want you to pitch. Do you have to be able to have a good fastball? And I know you're working on the changeup, and that's pretty good. But when you step on the mound for the first time, are you just trying to throw it by guys, or are you trying to develop a curveball? Any pitch you can develop. The more pitches you have, I guess, the more advantage you have up there on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all pitchers. I mean, they want to throw. We all want to throw a fastball by a guy. It's just like the confidence you have out there. I think the more and more you play, the more you start to learn that there's times where you can try to do that, and then there's certain hitters that you can try to do that against, and there's other guys that you just need to really focus on executing. But we all get in those little competitions where we like to compete and throw as hard as we can. But I was lucky enough to kind of learn a breaking ball right away, and it's kind of been my bread and butter since. So that probably got me out of a few jams. Got a little bit lucky there.
Alex, you were battling a little bit of a back injury last season. How are you feeling with that now? Is that something that's completely gone, or are you still battling that a little bit?
No. So that was just such a freak accident. It was just a little bulging disc thing in my it was like a chronic thing or something. I don't know. It was just something that happened that like one game. I felt it in the bullpen the first pitch, but I was like, I'm not coming out of the game. I didn't tell anyone that I was throwing way slower that day, and I kept getting asked by the coaching staff. They did a great job. They knew something was up, but I wasn't giving in. And then I think eventually when they saw that I couldn't throw the ball harder than like 86 miles per hour, they were like, all right, we got to get this kid out of there. But I mean, it was nothing crazy. It was actually just very weird. I took like a week or two off from throwing. TJ, our trainer, did a great job. Hammer did a great job on the strength and conditioning side. And I felt like I could have been back, like probably missed like 2-3 starts and then been back. But I think because it was the end of the year, we didn't really need to rush it. And I think that once we found out that we had a shot at going to the playoffs, that's when it was like, okay, Alex, like, let's like try to get you going, because what if we go through the playoffs, you could get, another 3 or 4 more starts. We don't want you to sit out on that too. And then, so I was able to start building it up. And then I got some bullpens ready, and I think I was still ready a week or two before even my last outing was. And I think it was just a cautious thing, just making sure everything, worked out right. And then I was actually lucky enough to get one more outing and come back and pitch one more time that year. I would have been so mad if I had to end my season on an injury like that, especially when I thought I was fine after like a week or so. And I was really happy with my performance. I was on a pitch count, so I only threw a couple innings, but I was happy with how I threw, and it was a good way. I mean, we lost the game, but it gave me a lot of confidence going into the offseason that I was, where I needed to be.
What I'm curious about, we had Dan Petrie on, former Tiger pitcher, World Series champion in 1984 for the Tigers, and he said, don't sleep on Alex Faedo. Do you think that you're in a good position? Not that you're not going to sneak up on people, but that
I appreciate
you know
that.
that you yeah, that you're ready. Give me the ball and let Alex be Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that a ton. That was very nice of him to say. I I don't know even how to answer like the whole like sneaking up or anything like that. I just try to get better each and every day. Try to be the best teammate and player I can be. But I feel like we also have probably a good 10 or 15, maybe even more other really good arms in the organization that people don't even show that much love to. So for Tigers fans that are going to end up listening to this, there's more than just four guys in there that are working really hard and trying to get better. And we're all really good friends. We talk to each other during the off season. We play video games with each other. We go out to eat when we do see each other every day in the locker room. It's just it's a pleasure being with those guys, and I feel like they feel the same way. So we're creating a really special culture, and I think that's a really big aspect of baseball and winning games that people sometimes forget. I think you get caught up in the numbers, but that's why you see teams like last year, for instance. The Nationals are a hell of a team, and we all know how many good players they have and talented guys, but all people talked about were the Astros the whole year, you know, all the computer analytics stuff they do, how many home runs they hit, how hard all their pitchers are throwing. But look at the Nationals, they came together and they were able to win a World Series, you know, just playing good team baseball.
Every young player I've ever talked to, regardless of sport, they just want to get to the big leagues as soon as possible. I know that's your ultimate goal. What is a realistic goal for you this season?
Well, I feel like I have a little different approach. I just want to get to the big leagues when the organization thinks I'm the best and like I could stay in the big leagues, not be one of those guys that has to go up and down. I'm a liability. I want to develop as much as I can, and hopefully they think, and hopefully I think that that's sooner rather than later. But at the same time, my goal is to just get there and stay there and help the team win games, not you know, be a liability. But for this year, I mean, my first goal is just, as of right now, staying ready and staying as polished as I can be for when this new spring training happens. I hope it happens, and then just being able to go out there, hopefully not miss any starts. Oh, this camera's going bad. Sorry. Hopefully not miss any starts. That's always my number one goal. Ideally, I don't know what like my average innings per game was, but hopefully I can get more. I feel like we're kind of losing that in baseball. Pitchers that are trying to go out there and throw more than just 5 innings, which I do a lot, but I'm trying to be better at, and save the bullpen. Those guys work so hard behind us, you know, just trying to have quicker innings. But I mean, those are my only realistic goals right now.
Alex, unfortunately, we have run out of time today. It was great catching up with you, and we look forward to actually meeting you in person really soon and seeing you in Detroit.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you, Alex. We did too. And thank you to our friends at McLaren for bringing us Brush Street Beat this week and every week here on The Word on Woodward. Alex Faedo, everybody. He's great to hear from. And Art, one of the biggest things that you mentioned during that interview was that Dan Petrie said, we can't sleep on him. We're always talking about guys like Casey Mize. We're talking about guys like Matt Manning and Tarek Skubal. But Alex Faedo, he's somebody that Tigers fans really need to look out for in the future here.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, when they drafted him, you know, he was just coming off that World Series, that College World Series, where he was outstanding. Now, I know he's had a few tweaks, and he kind of downplayed, and most athletes would, being hurt or not using that as an excuse. But I like his mindset. I like when we asked him about what's your own timeline, and I thought it was a very interesting answer when he said, when the organization thinks I'm ready, he wants to be a guy, once he arrives in Detroit, he wants to stay in Detroit. He doesn't want to be one of these guys that are, yo-yoed back and forth between the minor leagues and the big club, even though I know Toledo's only, an hour away at the most from Detroit. And, and obviously sometimes injuries dictate it. I mean, Tigers unfortunately get hurt. The big club gets hurt and they need an arm. Maybe he does, go back and forth a little bit. I really like him. I think that, you could tell, and I watched the Tigers pregame show last night where he was part of their chat leading up to the draft. And, Casey Mize was on it and Riley Green. They had like the last 3 number 1 draft picks of the Tigers. It was actually a really good show hosted by Double D and Matt Shepard. And, you could tell he's kind of the the leader of that group a little bit. I mean, he jokes around, he engages. Casey Mize, who's also pretty cool, but he was getting everybody involved and kind of running the conversation from the players' end. So again, like I said, I'm looking forward to obviously Torkelson, Spencer being here in Detroit. I'm really looking forward to Alex Faedo too. I think he's going to be a lot of fun.
He really is great personality, and he seems so confident too, just like Spencer Torkelson, confident and comfortable in his game. So, like you said, there are a lot of exciting prospects in the Tigers pool right now to look forward to seeing in the big leagues soon. And guys, we spoke with Alan Trammell earlier, who is a Hall of Famer, and I'm going to toss it over to Art now for our headliner with another Hall of Famer.
Thank you, Daniela. Time now for the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite, and a gentleman that needs no introduction. Obviously, he is a legend, and it is Scotty Bowman, a former Red Wing coach, now special consultant with the Blackhawks, among other things. I've said this to his face, and I'm going to say it again. I believe he is the greatest coach in professional sports history, in all of sports history, really. His legacy is that impressive. Scotty, thanks for joining us on the headliner. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Good, Art. Good to be on.
I want to go back to when you came to Detroit. I know your affiliation with Jimmy Devellano, who was the general manager at the time, went all the way back to your days in St. Louis, where you were the coach of the Blues. You were the coach for that iconic, on the Blues side, for the iconic Bobby Orr photograph when he scored the game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Finals. But your affiliation with Devellano, how instrumental was that to bring you to coach the Red Wings?
Well, you're right. Jimmy and I were talking about it. We had dinner the other night. He's still in Sarasota, Florida, and contacted me, and I just was with Pittsburgh, and I was in a little bit of a dispute over a contract, and he knew about it because we kept talking to each other. So he called and said that they wanted to make a change, and I didn't know a lot about Detroit, except they were one of the best teams in the West. They were a great offensive team. I was with Pittsburgh, and we were in the East, so it didn't play them very often, and I didn't know a lot about them, but I knew Jimmy, and the rest is kind of history.
With that said, and I think that's what's amazing. The Red Wings were an offensive juggernaut, as you just said. But when you walked in, I mean, you immediately knew that you had to change the culture where they had to be more of a team that could play the 200-foot game and just not think offense, offense, offense in order to get that Stanley Cup.
Art, when you get in the playoffs, of course, it's a lot different. You're matching up as much as 7 games over a 2-week period, and there's a lot of factors that go into it. But it's such a different game because players don't play the same as they do during the season. They know that there's no tomorrow, so the offense is important, but defense starts to really come into play. And when I got to Detroit, I knew that they had the offense. They had the center ice position pretty well locked up with both Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov. It would be tough for teams to match up. There wasn't very many. There was just a couple that could really put centermen like that on the ice. So we got playing good defense. We got some pretty good goaltending in the playoffs, as you know. Defense became I don't think we just played all out defense, but we played a puck possession game, and I think we were more like the way the Russian national team used to play. We had 5 of them at one time on our teams, but I think their philosophy was if we have the puck and we're making the right plays and not giving it away foolishly, that's going to be our defense, and that's what we were able to do with the Red Wings. We had enough. Well, we had great defensemen like Nick Lidstrom, and of course we had the forwards that could score, but we played a team game, and I think that was the reason the team was successful.
The Red Wings had Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov, and you just touched upon it, at center. They played together for 14 years. I consider them to be 2 of the top 4 centers in the entire world at the time, on the same team. I don't know if that made it easier for you to coach, but it certainly, as you just touched upon, made it very tough for teams. It was almost like pick your poison. What are you going to do? Try to shut down Yzerman? Or are you going to try to shut down Sergei?
It was center ice position. It's still the the premier position. I think when you have a couple of them, we look at Pittsburgh now with Malkin and Crosby, and you go through the different teams, and if they get the center ice position locked down, and we were fortunate, we picked up, as you know, in a trade for Igor Larionov, and that was a big factor. Even though Igor was 37 when we got him, he still had a lot left, and he proved it with being on those 3 Cup teams. And I think the other part that we got to mention is before I got there, I think it was Doug McLean and both Brian Murray and Doug. They picked up Chris Draper from Winnipeg in a very unusual deal, as you know. Often talked about kidding Chris that we got our dollars worth out of him. But no, that was only a joke. That they got his release, and they had to make it official, so they had to put $1 on the table. But so I think with those 4 centers, with the fact that Chris, that line was so important for our performance. Chris was a great worker and a really shutdown type of guy, and of course, Steve and Sergey, what they were like, and Igor came in. And I think he was the last piece of that puzzle with getting Fetisov. We already had, when I got to Detroit, they had drafted very smartly in the late, I think it was the 89 draft, that they got both Konstantinov and Lidstrom and then Fedorov. And I think when you look at that draft, I remember when teams wouldn't, I was on the other side. Nobody wanted to take any players from Russia because they thought it was a waste of a draft pick. So getting the first 2, and then Slava Kozlov came along as a young player from Russia, and then we got 3, and then we were trying to upgrade our defense. I don't think any of us thought about getting 5 of them. We had 3 of them, and then it just happened that Slava Fetisov was available. We ended up paying, I think, a third round draft pick, but it proved out to be, a real piece of the puzzle. We had so many good, skilled players, but I don't think our players ever worried about playing any style the other team. If we met a team that was going to try to rough us up or try to take us out, intimidate us, the players knew they had the ammunition to do it. And I think all those pieces coming together was the reason that this team was just molded.
I want to go back to your relationship with Steve Yzerman, because obviously, and you've been effusive in your praise, he had to change his game, which was not difficult because he was Mr. Offense, had over 160 points one season, setting all kinds of offensive records. If he didn't change his game, perhaps what we're talking about right now may have never happened. And you've always said, you give Steve a lot of credit for realizing that, putting up 160 points in a season is great, but if you're going to win, you've got to play both ends of the ice.
Well, we know Steve was, I think, at the time when they drafted him, and then he was the youngest captain in the NHL for quite some time. So when I sat down with Steve and said, if you could figure out a way to, you're not going to get the 60 goals or the 160 points that you got, but the team, if you could play defense and sacrifice offense, obviously, and it's not easy for a player to think that way. But I think what happened with Steve is the fact that they had some real close calls in the late 80s. They had a good team. They couldn't get by Edmonton. Nobody else could either. And then the playoff loss the year before I got there. So all the boxes were ticked that he wanted to win more than anything. So it wasn't much of a conversation. I just said, Steve, you can do it. Anybody that can score and make plays like you. And then he went out there, and he was blocking shots. He was getting face-offs. And of course, you're always enjoying it when you're winning. And I think this turned the corner for our team. I know it did. And it turned the corner on his career because, he went on to win the cups and become the captain everybody knew he was.
I remember when you got Larry Murphy, you came and I was covering the team obviously back then, and you said, hey, we acquired Larry Murphy from Toronto. And all the media were kind of looking at each other because you're right, he wasn't very popular in Toronto at the time. And we're like, oh, really? Larry Murphy? And you said, listen, he's going to help us. He's really, really going to help us. And as usual, you were 100% correct. Murph, was a great player for the Red Wings.
Well, one thing with Murph, he could move the puck, and it became such a perfect fit. And that was another thing about, I knew that Philadelphia was going to play the Lindros line as much as they could. Well, when you get a player like Lidstrom, Nick thrived on the 30-minute, 27, 28-minute games. He just knew, I mean, he could get out there every second shift. He could control that part of the game. So I knew going into that series that, I mean, we needed Nick to play between 27 and 28 minutes, maybe even 30. And Murph was right along with him. So that was one thing with Nick, is that his career was such an amazing. I just finished reading his book, and it's just amazing how when you look at the stats he put up for the Red Wings, even long after I was there. I've talked to Jimmy a lot about the great players that Detroit has had in their whole history, and that's what he kept saying to me. He said, Scotty, I wish he would have played a couple more years. He could have, but unfortunately, I don't think Nick will ever. I mean, he doesn't care about it, and I know it doesn't matter to him, but I don't think we ever give the credit that it was due. I mean, he got credit by winning Norris trophies, but when you talk about the great players in the NHL, I was fortunate to be with many. I think I counted the other day, Art. There's 42 players that I was fortunate to be with that are in the Hall of Fame. They're not in the Hall of Fame because of me. They're in the Hall of Fame because of the way they played. Don Shula said something once at a dinner I was at, and they asked him about his players and everything, and he said the one regret that he had as a coach was I never was able to tell my players how great they were, and I've always had that in my mind when I see guys like Fedorov and Lidstrom and Yzerman.
Scotty, I could go on all day. I could keep talking to you. There's so many more questions. We're going to have you back on the Headliner again. I really, really appreciate it. And I can't thank you enough. And I want to say this to you. I've said it to you before. You have done so much for me personally in my career when I was covering the Red Wings. I am so thankful, not only that I got to know you, I admired you as a coach. I love those Montreal teams. Ken Dryden was one of my idols when I was growing up. And I just appreciate you taking time. I've always enjoyed your company. Thank you very, very much for being part of the Headliner today. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Scotty.
Thank you, Art, and good luck to your Tuesday and Thursday, on Woodward Avenue, because words on Woodward, I'll try to find it somewhere. Thanks, Art. Nice talking to you.
My pleasure, Scotty. You take care of yourself. Thank you very, very much. All right, there you have it. That is the Word on Woodward, the Headliner on the Word on Woodward, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Daniela, what can I say? Scotty's one of my all-time favorites, and I just appreciate his company.
Art, you could totally tell throughout that whole interview, but I really hope that Scotty was able to find the Word on Woodward and see that. That was probably the best promotion we've ever got. Scotty Bowman watching the Word on Woodward, trying to find it, trying to navigate the web and figure out where he can watch the show.
He'll eventually find it. It may take him a month or two, but he's definitely going to find it. The other thing that I love about Scotty, and I think you really got a real unique perspective of him and what it was like to what it was like to cover him. I asked him a question about Larry Murphy, and I've said this before. When the Red Wings acquired Larry Murphy, Scotty was extremely happy on trade deadline day. And this used to be like Christmas morning trade deadline day. The Red Wings made all kinds of moves way back then on trade deadline day. And he was just gleeful. And, Murph had a rough go in Toronto. So we were all kind of looking at each other, like I said, hey, the media, yeah, Larry Murphy, okay. Hey, he's a good player. He obviously is, has won some cups with Pittsburgh, and he's always been an offensive good player. But we just didn't make the connection of how good Murph was. And so that's why I asked him that question. What does he end up doing? He talks a little bit about Murph, but he goes right in about how great of a player Nick Lidstrom was. That's Scotty Bowman perfectly. That is, because no matter what you ask him, you're not sure how he's going to respond, and chances are he'll kind of start maybe with answering your question, and then he'll go off and be Scotty and just go on and say what he wants to say.
Or
So,
he kind of sounds like someone else I know. Starts to answer the question, and then he answers a different question. Who is that?
Maybe that's why we got along so well. Anytime I really wanted to get Scotty going or ask him something, is that I would ask him. He really collects hockey cards. He's really, really into hockey cards. And I used to collect hockey cards, and he used to have these ones that were, like were double sized. They were kind of, I don't know, they were kind of like this. And so I went to him. I said, "Hey, Scotty, did you ever collect, like the tall hockey cards?" And he looked at me, and a big smile went on his face. And Scotty had a tendency to roll his neck a little bit in his eyes when he was thinking. And he said, "Oh, you mean the tall boys?" And that's, I guess they were called the tall boys. Wasn't that much of aficionado. And then he went on, and I'm not exaggerating, he went on for 45 minutes about the tall boys and about how they were a great card and how they only did it once. And I mean, he was, I think he could have named off every player in the league that had a tall boy card. So, just a great guy, excellent coach, and has a little bit of idiosyncratic, I guess is the proper word. But I always enjoy talking to Scotty, as you can tell. He's something else.
Definitely a great guy, and I think you nailed it. We're going to have him back for the headliner one day. So another thank you to Scotty Bowman. We're going to get into Let's Socialize, presented by AAA right now. And of course, that means we're going to bring back Carly Johnston, who has been all over the social media accounts, gathering your questions for her, Art, and I. So Carly, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Daniela. Okay, we're going to get right into it. First question is for Art, coming off of my Instagram. Do you think the guy in Jordy's tweet was Hazmat Man? Art, take it away. I don't even know what else to say.
Well, Hazmat Man, it's a little, Jordy, and I must know Jordy. Hazmat Man is a character that I jokingly came up with in the beginning of quarantine. I figured once this is all under control, wouldn't it be great to go out and go to Red Wing fans dressed up in a red hazmat suit with the Wing logo on our chest and give out free treats or something, tickets or things to the community, like Hazmat Man's here, kind of as a joke. I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know why, because I was twisted back then, and but quarantine does weird things to you. I'll tell you another thing to really go off subject. I just found out that Kelly Clarkson's filing for divorce, and I'm devastated. And you know why I'm devastated? Because I end up watching her show. I've watched her show from a cabin in Montana, and so I'm thinking, wow, what, Kelly Clarkson's getting, I've been in the house too long, I guess is what I'm saying. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that Hazmat Man is maybe it is Hazmat Man, but Hazmat Man is something that I've talked about with some people within the organization, of somebody dressed up in a red hazmat suit going around, kind of like I called him Hazmat Man, the Pied Piper of the pandemic. People follow him around and, he gives things. I mean it in a good way. Now, I don't know, who knows? Maybe someday I'll be in a hazmat suit going around Detroit doing deeds of kindness and goodwill.
Okay, well, with that, we're sending Kelly Clarkson our best. Sorry that she's going through this difficult time. Moving on. This is for both Art and Daniela. What are your favorite sports movies? Daniela, we'll start with you.
Oh my gosh, I really don't know how we got from Hazmat Man to Kelly Clarkson. But anyway, this is a really tough question for me to answer, because I'm just like a sports movie fanatic. That's all of my favorite movies are sports movies. So I'm gonna say two, and I'm gonna cheat a little bit on one of them. I have watched the Friday Night Lights TV series probably 4 or 5 times all the way through. Coach Eric Taylor, special place in my heart. I love them. I love that entire series. Texas Forever. And then My other movie would probably be Rocky. I was a huge Rocky fan growing up too. I used to watch that series, all of them. I used to watch all of 5 of them. Now there's 6 of them. I used to watch all of them all the time. So we'll go Friday Night Lights series, which is my cheater one, and then we'll go with Rocky too.
Love it. 2 good choices. Okay, Art, how about you?
Well, I guess, obviously Slapshot is a great movie, with the legendary Paul Newman as Reggie Dunlap. I just love everything about that film. But I really think my favorite sports movie of all time is a rather serious film called Bang the Drum Slowly. It stars Robert De Niro as a very, very young Robert De Niro. Michael Moriarty, who is actually from Detroit. I believe his grandfather actually played for the Tigers. I think that's why he's probably from Detroit. And also Blythe Danner, who you two might better know as Gwyneth Paltrow's mother. She's in this movie, and what it is it's this film about the New York Yankees. Michael Moriarty is also an author. They call him author. He writes books and stuff. He's highly intellectual, one of the best pitchers in baseball. Well, Robert De Niro is this minor league catcher who he develops a relationship with, who's not very good. Robert De Niro has a terminal disease, and it's the kind of maturation of their relationship and how Moriarty kind of has a metamorphosis, if you will, how he goes from being this really stuck-up athlete to being a very humble and, that there's more to life than just, what he thought is I'm the best pitcher in Major League Baseball or something. So I don't want to really give the whole plot away, but, De Niro's excellent as usual. Moriarty, who's a great actor in his own right, and then Blythe Danner, who's Michael Moriarty's wife in this. They're all very, very good. I mean, Vincent Gardenia is the manager, I believe, of the Yankees. I mean, it's a great film. It's the dynamics. It's just not about sports. It's about life. I highly recommend Bang the Drum Slowly. Excellent, excellent movie.
Well, we definitely have a long list of movies we should be watching over the weekend. Personally, my favorites are Remember the Titans, which is a perfect movie to watch right now, a perfect sports movie during this Black Lives Matter movement, especially as a really good message. And of course, Freshman 5. I mean, that was an incredibly done movie. Okay. And then now to some posts I've seen around social media. Let's check out this picture of Bernier's son, Tyler, that his wife Martine posted. He lost a tooth. How cute, right? But the best part, though, is the caption. Martine pointed out that Tyler said he now looks like Bertuzzi with his missing tooth. So how cute. I'm wondering if the Tooth Fairy will be very good at Tyler. And then now on to a post I saw of young Spencer Torkelson. Check this out. Torch was in a pitch, hit, and run regional competition. Unfortunately, he landed second there, but I mean, he was the first overall draft pick last night. Seems like he's improved on his play since then, but he is the second one in from the left, as it says in the caption. So very cool to see. I mean, when you start that young, you're bound to be in the draft. So boys, if you're out there, girls too, it's a good inspiration to see. Sometimes if you get second place, you can be the first overall draft pick for the MLB.
I love that takeaway. That's what all little kids need to know, that if you're second place, don't worry. One day you could be the first overall pick.
Don't get down. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. I want to go back to these sports movies for a second, because I don't know. I've been thinking about this the whole time you guys have been talking, to be honest with you, because there are so many good sports movies. I'm sitting here thinking about all of them. There's Miracle, which we didn't even touch on. Moneyball was a really good sports movie. The Blind Side, Rudy. I couldn't pick. So I feel like I
so
have to
many.
give some love
I know. Remember the Titans was an easy one for me, though. That was literally my favorite movie growing up. So that was an easy one.
I think Remember the Titans has a great soundtrack. I know that. For me, I've never seen Rudy. I just never have. I've been to Vegas a couple of times, and Rudy is like at a sports bar, always signing memorabilia. I mean, it's about Notre Dame, I guess. Hey, look.
I've never seen the movie, but can I get your autograph?
Yeah, did you go up to him and say, "Hey, I've never watched"?
Yeah, then I turn around on Vegas. Hey, I'm in Vegas. I try to sell it off the street. Hey, signed by Rudy. Anyway, it's about Notre Dame, and hey, and I'm Catholic, so so I can say this. I'm not a big Notre Dame fan, I've never seen that movie, but I kind of like the films that reach beyond sports. I think Hoosiers was a really good movie. There was a nice underlining story. The Dennis Hopper character, obviously, with his son, and the last shot and Give It to Me, and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of like Hoosiers, or like Field of Dreams, coming out of the cornfield. That's a little too, no pun intended, corny for me. So I mean, that's why I think, again, without being too redundant, I like Bang the Drum Slowly. That's a real movie dealing with real kind of issues and about how people can change. And so I really love that movie. But there's a lot of great Pride of the Yankees. Gary Cooper as Lou Gehrig. Great movie.
Are you trying to
Absolutely
name
fantastic.
every single sports movie ever created?
You know what? I've
never even heard of.
Hey, I'm telling you right now, you two should watch Pride of the Yankees. Because obviously he has the famous Lou Gehrig speech. Today I consider myself the luckiest man in the world. And what is he? He has Lou Gehrig disease, which I believe is ALS. So so it's a great film too, though. I mean, I like films that have a little bit of a message than we're the terrible team, we're a bunch of misfits, and then we become champions. I guess there's a metamorphosis going there, but sometimes that's a little too Hollywood. I like things that have a little more teeth, that are a little more real.
Yeah, Coach Carter's a good one too. So definitely a long list of sports movies that everyone needs to watch this weekend if they haven't seen them yet.
So now that we've listed every sports movie that we could possibly think of, Carly, thank you so much for writing all those great social media for us and bringing some great conversation. So thank you so much. And a big thank you to AAA for presenting Let's Socialize this week and every week here on the Word on Woodward. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. Art, you'll never believe this. Guess what the Hockey Town trivia theme is today?
I would say it has to do something with Hazmat Man.
No, my gosh, no, it's movies, but not Hazmat Man. Maybe that's like a future topic, but it's movies today. So directly after the Word on Woodward, head over to the District Detroit mobile app, and we're going to have some movies trivia for you. And if you win, you'll get a great prize. So make sure you head over there. As always, thank you so much for watching us today. And I do want to remind you that Fox Sports Detroit is still airing some classic Tigers games. We've got the 84 World Series going on for the rest of this week and into the weekend. So that's a lot of fun to, keep up on some sports here. They've been doing this for us since sports went on pause, and it's been great to be able to catch up with everything and live some great memories through Tigers and Red Wings history. So thank you to FSD again, 84 World Series to wrap up the week for us. And I do also want to let you guys know that the Tigers are doing a silent auction right now on the web. There are so many really cool prizes that are going to run all the way until June 21st. So if you're interested, head over to the website and find more information on that. Now, I think I covered everything there, Art. Thank you so much for another great show today. It's always so much fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. Like I said, I was really, I think I needed the show. I think I needed something to have a little bit of fun and take my mind off, some of the things that have been going on lately. So it's always a pleasure, Daniela. You and Carly are great. I really want to thank our crew too. These guys are the best. I mean, they're just outstanding. They bring it all the time. Going to Spencer Torkelson live and trying to coordinate everything. It's never easy, but they do it flawlessly. So this is a lot of fun for me, and I really appreciate everyone's efforts who are behind the Word on Woodward. Truly.
Art, I second that fully, and I know that they're probably a little sick of us at this point, but they love us too. They do a great job behind the scenes, and the show's amazing. All due to them.
You know what? Again, and because I've gotten texts from people. Truly, and I can't believe it, and I only found this out yesterday, but I definitely exposed myself to some of the crew when my camera was on without me knowing it on Tuesday. So, that really did happen. I'm really sorry about that. And I had no idea, but, that's, I mean, exhibition or being an exhibitionist is not part of my whole thing, but I apologize to those unfortunate crew members that saw that.
Yeah, thankfully for all of you fans out there, we were not live during that time, but we were live when Art showed us his red underwear. So get out your red underwear because apparently that's good luck. Thank you guys so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.